Hello. I don't have a can today. I have a bottle with the name Erica on it. It's not my name, but close enough. Anyway, hey guys. Welcome to another stream. And today, we're playing FNaF 4. Which is, I think, the only FNaF game, at least mainline FNaF game, that I've never beaten. I mean, I haven't beaten, like, 10-20 mode in FNaF 2, but, I've beaten, like, up to night 6, you know? And I think I've beaten, like, at least night 5 in every FNaF game, except this one. FNaF 1 I've beaten 420, FNaF 2 I've beaten, night 6. FNaF 3 I've beaten Nightmare. Not aggressive Nightmare, but Nightmare. FNaF 4, nothing. I've beaten, like, what, night 1, 2, and 3. Sister Location I've beaten night 5. FNaF 6 I've beaten Saturday with all the animatronics. Ultimate Custom I haven't beaten 50-20 mode, but, like, whatever, that doesn't really count. I've done, like, 86 or 8800, something like that. I don't know where my viewer count is. It's supposed to be there. Trying to do whatever I can to just make it respawn. See, can I just add it again, maybe? Nope, not there. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, I guess I'll open up FNaF 4. I didn't even know whether or not I had it downloaded. Let's see. Should I do game capture? I think I should. As long as it picks up. Usually it should. Normally. Let's see. Grade 5, FNaF 4. You there? You there? Is it gonna pop up? It's not currently popping up. Auto. Looking for game to capture. Will you capture this game? No. Alright, game capture's not working, so I'll just use display. As long as it doesn't break. Yeah, okay, cool. Well, as you can see, I've beaten Night 3 before. Never finished Night 4. My hope today is to maybe beat Night 5. And when I say that, I mean I'm starting a new game. But, I don't think I'll beat any further than Night 5, probably. I think I'll be too, afraid and want to die before before I make it to Night 6, so I'll probably just end the stream whenever I beat Night 5, just because well, currently I'm reading a comic, so I'd like to get back to that, but I wanted to do this for the anniversary, so also, the reason I'm doing this earlier today is because Blah is coming to my house today. So, like at like 3 or 4. So, so I didn't want to stream like at like noon, just in case I did take like 5 hours to beat this game, which I doubt I will. But you know, just in case. Anyway, new game. 5 days until the party. Fredbear. What did he do that? Whoops. Oh. What did he do this time? He locked you in your room again. Don't be scared, I am here with you. Hello. These are my friends. Okay. You have some weird-ass friends, buddy. I bang on the door. That's the only thing I can interact with. The door and the dolls. Or the stuffed animals. The plushies. Sorry, still sick. Tomorrow is another day. Hello. Night 1. I gotta remember what the buttons are. Click. It's, control. Cool. I don't think they actually do anything, or like I don't think they really kill you until like at least 3. But still, let's just be safe. I hear that. That phone guy or something? Gotta lock in here. I don't like FNaF 4 that much. I think it's definitely one of the cooler games, like aesthetically. And it's definitely one of the scariest ones, if not the scariest. But I wouldn't say it's like the most fun game in the series. Eventually I'm gonna miss it and I'm just gonna be like I hear footsteps. Hello. Go away, Fredo. Hello. Had a feeling you'd be there. Hey, I saw the pills. Dog. A lot of very creepy ambiance in this game. The moment you hit the flashlight is always just like the most stressful moment. It's like I'm hearing so many sounds. What's the breathing and what's not? I'm also worried about like how long I have to wait. How long before I Like, how long until how long do I have to wait not hearing it? Okay, cool. Alright, well, none showed up at my door. I think because I did it well. Because I knew not to check the closet. That's what I think most people have the problem of in this game. 4 days until the party. It's like, I think people that play for the first time, you know, he is hiding again. I think people that play for the first time, they're like, they have no idea that the closet's not used on night 1. He won't stop until you find him. So, like, they keep checking that, and then that's what causes them to will have the animatronic spawn at all. Over there. That's not ominous. Hello. I knew it was coming, but the sound still kind of scared me. Tomorrow is another day. Oh shit, it's Plushtrap's time. Fun with Plushtrap. Hold control to use the flashlight. Hello. Man. Bro. How are you not down yet? There we go. I swear, I heard him move like 50 times, and he just didn't get off the chair. Still. Okay. I don't think Plushtrap got his name from... Sorry, I don't think Springtrap got his name from Plushtrap. I just think... Hello. I just think that Plushtrap got his name from Springtrap. From Springtrap. Because I think that Plushtrap as a character probably existed already, like the plushie, but I think that in the Nightmares he was based on Springtrap. Hello. Chica's in the kitchen. I think that's Foxy. There's Foxy, yeah. My bad. Forgot about you guys. I can hear Foxy just like swapping sides. Okay. That was Foxy. Chica's in the kitchen. There's Bonnie. Foxy's probably gonna get in here. Or not. Haven't heard any breathing yet. Yet. Spoke too soon. Shit. Is there a sound cue for Foxy going farther in? I heard the breathing the second that I clicked the flashlight. That was the most depressing timing I've ever had. That was so sad. That was so sad. There was no breathing until right when I clicked the flashlight. Damn it. I was so close too. I was at 5 a.m. Probably close to the end. That was so sad. All right. Ba-na-na-na. They just started getting really close at the end. And I was hearing so many different movements, so I was like, is it breathing? There was no breathing until right when I clicked it. Hello. She's in the kitchen. She's still in the kitchen, I think. Foxy's on the right side. I think she's just still in the kitchen, but I'm just trying to be safe. Shit, I turned when he ran, so I didn't hear which way it was. She's still in the kitchen. Shit. I don't want to use the flashlight on that. Okay, we're good. Footsteps are very handy when they leave. Footy. I'm locked in. Cool. That was night 2. I'm stressed out. Alright. 3 days until the party. Oh. He left without you. He knows that you hate it here. You are right beside the exit. If you run, you can make it. Hurry, run towards the exit. This is the exit, right? No, don't you remember what you saw? The exit is the other way. Hurry and leave. Ah, what did I see? Subchat. Hello. It's too late. Hurry the other way and find someone who will help you. You know what will happen if he catches you. You can find help if you can get past them. You have to be strong. Purple guy! That suit is short as hell. This guy in the costume's like, dude, are you okay? Tomorrow is another day. Sugary soda. It's 0. Alright, Plushtrap time. Dude. There we go. Okay, when you skip 2 hours, is Freddy active or... Nope. Chica in the kitchen. Shit. Jesus fucking Christ. Fred'll spawn fast for night 3. How fast are you? Well, that's not very nice. I already don't even want to play anymore. That's just turned me off the whole game. That was night 3. That's how fast he was. I guess I stayed on Foxy for too long, but... That just made me sad. I think every time I play this game, I just like... Every time I die, I'm just like, I want to stop. It's not the first time that's happened. The last time and the first time that I actually played it was 3 years ago. Hold on, I'm gonna switch to face cam just for a bit because I'm gonna just talk. I'm gonna go see. I think it was 2 years ago. It was for the anniversary too. 3 years ago. It was 2022. That was the last time that I played this game. 3 years ago. And I beat the first 3 nights. And then I was like... Nah. But yeah, I was kind of worried that was going to happen with Bonnie. Because I was like, I might be taking too long. If I decide I don't want to play anymore, what do I do instead? Still FNaF related. You know Friday's the Ruin anniversary? like 3 years, or not 3 years, 2 years. It's pretty cool. I did not realize that it would be. It's weird to think that that was 2 years ago. You could tell by my hair back then. Discussing FNaF 4 theories. We could read comments on my last couple theories, actually. That would be kind of fun. That could be fun. I'm gonna turn on music, though. How is 20 on the volume? Is this like a good audio mix? Like I usually do this, like for like chill parts of the stream, but I just want to make sure that it actually sounds good, and then I'm not too quiet and the music's not too loud. So I'm gonna pause it. How is 20 on the volume? Is this that's good? All right, I'll continue. Who do you think said that "I will put you back together" line? The puppet. I don't think it was Afton. I feel like reading comments could be fun. I could turn that into a video too. I could do that as a series, honestly. Reading my FNaF theory comments. I feel like that would be good to like keep the discussion going. And so that like I don't like leave all the comments like up in the air, you know. Like, I get where the idea of William being the final speaker comes from. Like, there's some things that he says that are, like, the same as the final speaker. Like, the Michael saying, like, I put it back together just like you asked me to, and he's saying that to William. And I think knowing that he said that, and also in the FNaF 3 teaser, there's the line, "I'm still here." And both of those things, "I will put you back together" and "I'm still here," those are both things that Fred Bartholdi says. So, like, I get that, but I feel like it kind of depends, because Afton's goal, I've never thought, really, except when I was Mike Victim, but I never really thought that, the idea of, like, that being, of like Afton putting the bite victim back together in some way, like turning him into an animatronic or like a robot or something like that. I never really thought that made sense, or like trying to remake him and that's why he killed kids or whatever. I never thought that was very convincing, especially since I believe that the bite victim is the runaway and Midnight Motorist, which would mean that Charlotte died before him anyway. So Afton still killed kids without that motivation. So I never thought that was necessary. Impulse Evan, what do you think FNaF 4 even is now? Okay, I think it breaks down into three things. Number one, the experiments, Afton's experiments. He uses hallucinogenic gas on children to test the effects of fear on them. And then, yeah, he uses the hallucinogenic gas to test the effects of fear on children. And one of these children, I think, is the bite victim. So he has to go through those experiences. Probably as a punishment for sneaking out, like in Midnight Motorist. Like he says, he will be sorry when he comes back. That's probably what he has to go through after that. And then after that, after the bite victim gets bitten, when he's in his coma, he has nightmares about those experiences, about that bedroom, but instead of it being the Nightmare animatronics, it's Nightmare himself, Shadow Freddy, essentially feeding off of like the agony of the bite, because we know that Shadow Freddy has like some connections with the bite and the bite victim, specifically with FNaF World having his jaw unhinged, the fact that he's like a Fredbear, so like he seems to have some connections to that. So I think that he kind of feeds off the fear and the agony and like the, well, not anger really from the, there's not really anger in the bite, but I think he's like probably created based on Afton's anger, and then he feeds on agony and fear and stuff, and more anger, but he feeds on the agony and the fear from the bite, and then he grows stronger, like in Hide and Seek. He grows the sharp teeth and claws. That's what happens with Shadow Bonnie when there's more fear and agony produced. He like feeds on it, and then he grows the sharp teeth and claws. So I think that's what happens with Shadow Freddy after the bite. He feeds on the bite victim's agony and fear from the bite, and then he appears in his nightmares while he's in a coma. That's why there's the ambulance sound from Nightmare's jump scare. Then later on, sometime after the events of FNaF 1. Probably even like around the time of FNaF 3, if you ask me. Michael probably has the bite victim attached to him. And then I would say this is more like a story idea. Like it doesn't really have solid evidence or anything. I think it just makes sense story-wise because with FNaF 3 coming up, like it's been years since Sister Location. So I feel like Michael probably is like, his original goal was to seek out Afton. But then I think because he never found him, because Afton was spring locked, he never found Afton, so he kind of like, he could have like lost his way, if that makes sense. Like he stopped searching for him. So when FNaF 3 opens, he like kind of like lost sight of his goal, so he just decided not to go. So then maybe that's when the bite victim appears to him, showing him the nightmares and being like, hey, remember, this stuff happened. This is what happened to me. This stuff was important. Also, here's Plushtrap. This is what your dad has become. This is what our dad has become now. So you gotta, you should probably go, man. And then, so like, yeah, he puts Michael in the place that he was once in. He puts Michael through the nightmares that the bite victim puts Michael through the nightmares that the bite victim once experienced, so that Michael remembers everything, and so that he goes through all that to remember, like, to reattach to his original goal, right? Again, that doesn't have solid evidence. I think it just makes sense story-wise. And then, yeah, that's it. That's what I think FNaF 4 is. What do you think of FNaF R gameplay being in 2017? Logos real value think connects to 2017 and that picture of Nightmare February and Nightmare Restaurant and that page about recent nightmares. What is the real value thing? I never actually knew what that was. Like, I know people talked about it and said it connected to 2017, I think I haven't seen the evidence, so I could be wrong, but based on what people said, I always interpreted that as the fact that the logbook came out in 2017. So it might not be a lore thing, it might just be a real life thing, but I feel like it makes more sense for FNaF 4 to be like whenever FNaF 3 is. Could be 2017. Like if you're thinking linearly, FNaF 3 is 30 years after Freddy's closed. Makes sense for that to be 30 years after FNaF 1, because that was the last time it closed. And it kind of makes sense for it to be 30 years after the missing children incident location. Which would be 1985, so it would be 2015. FNaF 1, don't really know when that is. I'd opt probably for 1989. Some people mentioned like a Godfather Part 3 reference in it, which is like 1990, so maybe it's like 1991 or something. I think now it's probably not in 1993. It could be, but or 92, it could be too. Either way, I think FNaF 3's timing. I think if FNaF 3 is 30 years after FNaF 1, hard to say exactly what year, but around like the early 2020s, late 2010s. So then, if you want, you could say linearly, like you go from FNaF 1, FNaF 2, FNaF 3. Yes, FNaF 1 is the most recent one, but FNaF 2 was the most recent game, and in that game, Freddy's does close down. So theoretically, it could make sense for FNaF 3 to be 30 years after FNaF 2. Because it just says 30 years after Freddy's closed. So, linearly it makes sense for it to be FNaF 2, because it was the most recent game, and Freddy's closes in that game. So it could be like, FNaF 1, FNaF 2 was a prequel, FNaF 3 is 30 years after the FNaF 2 location closed. That works, I think. So, like, it could be 2017. Like, that works fine. That's probably not... That's probably not what I would opt for, but I think it makes logical sense, you know? Hello, Magnus Cypher. You know, I'm thinking of actually doing, like, reading my FNaF theory comments, and I'm thinking I could turn them into videos, but the question is, what do I name these videos? Like, what do I title them? Like, there'll be a subtitle, then it'll be reading my FNaF theory comments. I could do numbers, too, at the end of that. Number 1. Number 2. Oops. But what do I do the subtitles of them? Like, is Tales from Thieves Flex actually in the games for the first one? I feel like that's like, no, it's not. So it's like, why would I name it that, you know? I think it was about the price of a Freddy's ticket, the number from the blackboard in the comic being how much that ticket would cost during the time Mike writes it in. I can look it up. I know there's a video on it. FNaF 3 log, FNaF logbook, real value theory. Is it the Immense Andrew one? Jesus Christ, it's a 30-minute video. I'm gonna just go on here. I want to watch it. Now, I don't want to watch the whole thing because it's 30 minutes. Maybe I'll watch the whole thing on my own time. But I'll go right here to real value code.
This second
I'm
half of the
curious about
video
this.
is my main motivation for making this video because it uncovers something pretty important in the logbook that's been buried. It's also another strong point for Michael filling out the logbook during FNaF 3 in case I still haven't convinced you. So there's a code, for lack of a better word, in the logbook that you've probably never heard of. It's something that, to my knowledge, has been almost entirely ignored. I, however, will not stand for real value code erasure. What's the real value code? Well, on page 79, there's a $16 coupon in which Mike writes, "For real value, see page 61. Page 61 is the comic strip with Freddy and Foxy, which has the whiteboard with the numbers 5 plus 4 and 3. If this sounds familiar, it's because this was used in the Cassidy code. Though mistakenly not put in the first printing, the words "my name" appear on page 79, and when redirected to page 61, the numbers 5 plus 4, or 9, and 3 give the coordinates for the I in Cassidy. But people all ignore why Michael told us to go to page 61 in the first place. It wasn't to find the 5th letter for the Cassidy code, although Cassidy did use what he had already written for her own purpose. He says to go to page 61 for real value. Real value is an actual term for the value of something adjusted for inflation. For example, an item that was worth 20.
I want to check something because I know I have the Cassidy code, the whole Cassidy code, like written down. Cassidy. Not like written down. Like I have the images of it. Cassidy code. 9 and 3 is used there, but is it? Hold on. I want to check. I'm gonna grab my logbook. What I won't be doing is showing you my logbook, because I got it when I was like 11 or 12, back when I did use it as exactly what it was. Like a children's activity workbook, to be clear. It's always the my name pages, too. I know that. I think I circled all the my names, too. It was a 52. Uh, 39. It's the A. The S. Second S is 7 and a 2. Yeah, 7, 2. And then it should be the 9, 3. And the D is 10, 11. Ten, 11. Yeah, okay. I actually didn't know that was how you found the I. It makes sense, considering I remember looking at like images of all the numbers and it was just Casti, not Cassidy. So it makes sense that the I was found like in a slight, or not a different way, but like a way that I hadn't heard about. I think I just I never really like investigated the logbook myself much until well, I did when I was younger and I was like trying to find out like the tally code stuff. I was trying to figure out that because I was like, I'm a very smart boy, I can do it. But I didn't find anything, but like besides that, I hadn't really investigated the logbook myself outside of just theory videos and until like, well, when I made my recent video on it, like on the David theory. And it's like I've looked through it. Obviously, I have it, and I've like circled every like little thing that I've seen besides the tally marks. I haven't circled those, but like all the not the numbers, but all the like faded text messages. I've circled all those, and like I've looked at certain things like throughout the logbook, depending on context. Like when Andrew, like in epilogue 4, was like, I can't see anything, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's what the bite victim says in the logbook. Maybe they're the same person. They're not, but maybe they're the same person. It's interesting though, because the bite victim and David have connections. The bite victim says he can't see, just like Andrew. I wonder if I think somebody commented this on one of my videos. I wonder if maybe Andrew doesn't exist, but David is the Andrew fill-in or something. I don't know. I don't know. Probably not, because it's like David is one of the solid points that suggests, oh yeah, book characters in the games exist. They're not different characters. They're not parallels. They're just the actual characters. Like Edwin exists. Fiona exists, David exists, Mimic exists, Tiger exists. They're all from the books, but they exist as themselves in the games. So, like, apply that logic to Andrew, he should exist. So then, if you also say, like, Andrew actually doesn't exist and David is just Andrew, then that's, like, kind of a cop-out. It's like, it's making a point that's quite literally the opposite of the point it's trying to make. Let's continue watching the video. Alright, sure. I apologize. Checking Discord first. Alright. Oops.
$20 in 1987 would be worth about $54 today, so its real value is $54. So what Michael is saying is to go to page 61 to find the value of the coupon adjusted for inflation at the time he's writing this.
Okay, first of all, like, what is hockey?
We're a hockey stick company. We're trying to make hockey more affordable. Even if it's just one person, I want to make them join hockey and include them in the sport I love, make it more accessible.
Pedigree.
The coupon has a value of $16. On page 61, if we add the 5 plus 4, we get 9 and then 3. Multiplication is the only
93?
operation that makes sense, so we multiply the numbers to get 27. So the real value of the $16 coupon at the time Michael's writing this is $27. But when is the coupon supposed to have been from? Our best guess is that it's supposed to be from the last year the last Freddy's was open, so 1993. It could technically be some year before 1993, but I'll address that in a minute.
I assume he's like saying
I've used
if FNaF
multiple
1 was
inflation
1993.
calculators online, and by putting the year as 1993 and the value as $16, the only year in which the real value comes to $27 is 2017. 2016 undershoots it and 2018 overshoots, but 2017 is right on the money. So Michael is definitely not filling this out during FNaF 1. But wait, 2017 can't be right. FNaF 3 takes place in 2023, right? We've known this since it came out 8 years ago, right? Right? Well, my
What if we
theory
say-
for a long time now has been that FNaF
Hold on.
3 doesn't take...
I want to see something. I'm gonna use an inflation calculator as well. What if we say, hold on, calculator, cool. Let's say it's $16. What if we say it's like, say for instance, 1989. Let's check that. 2019, say. Calculate that. $33. So yeah, that's high. If we go back down to 2017, calculate that, that's 31. I think the issue is FNaF 1 probably isn't 1993. 1991 is 2878. Even, okay, so 1991, $16 in 1991 is, $27.84 in 2015. So, it's hard to dictate, because now with more recent knowledge and just like thinking about it more, FNaF 1 doesn't seem to be in 1993. So that being the basis for this theory makes it a little bit hard to like solidly say that. Let's see. What other years do people say like FNaF 1 could be like? Some people say 2003. Let's see what that would be. $20. Let's see. What about in 2019? For some reason. I don't know why it would be 2019. 30 years after 2003 hasn't happened yet, so, so that doesn't work. Let's say 2000. Still that we can't be 30 years yet, so we can't calculate that, but in 2025 that would be $30, so that also doesn't work. Let's see. If we assume FNaF 3 takes place in 2015, 30 years after the MCI, then that lines up with FNaF 1 taking place in 92, which means you get paid on the same day, but in both 1 and 2. Yeah, like 92 works like with the schedule if you go based on FNaF 2. I always thought it would be 1993 because the calendar lines up with Night 5 being a Friday, which I think makes logical sense, but also I feel like if we say if we say we're looking for consistency, then 92 makes more sense, because in both 1992 and 1987, the last paycheck, like, it's the same date, and in both it would be a Thursday that we get paid, I think, right? So let's see. If we go 92 to 2015, that's 27.21. So actually, wait, let's go average. 27.03. So that works. FNaF 3 can be 2015. That works pretty well. Is Nightmare Shadow Freddy? Yes, he is. Well, first of all, in the not comments, in the files of FNaF 4, Nightmare is referred to as Shadow Freddy, and in Ultimate Custom Night, Nightmare says, "I am your wickedness made of flesh" to Afton, implying he is essentially Afton's evil manifested. And then in FNaF 3, we have, well, in the MCI, Afton lures the missing kids throughout Freddy's to the safe room. In FNaF 3's Follow Me minigames, Shadow Freddy lures the animatronics possessed by the missing kids to the safe room. Throughout Freddy's to the safe room. So it's like Shadow Freddy's kind of repeating history. So it's like Shadow Freddy and Afton are very clearly linked. Nightmare and Nightmare and Afton are... Nightmare is essentially the evil of Afton. Nightmare and Shadow Freddy are supposedly the same character, so it just makes sense. They have the same role. They're named each other, they're said to be the same character. So yeah, they're just the same character. Also, Nightmare appears... Nightmare has the sound of an ambulance connecting him to the bite, and Shadow Freddy has like an unhinged jaw in FNaF World, implying there's like a connection between him and the bite too. So there's just like a bunch of things that like connects them to different characters, by extension connects them to each other, because they're both connected to those characters, I guess, if that makes sense. It's kind of like the same with Eleanor. Like theoretically, Shadow Freddy and Eleanor could be the same character because they're both at least partially made up of the evil of Afton and feed on fear and anger and agony. So it makes sense for them all to be the same character. Nightmare, Shadow Freddy, Nightmare Yawn even, because like he's a version of Nightmare, the replacement of him for the Halloween DLC. So Nightmare, Shadow Freddy, Nightmare Yawn, and Eleanor all being the same character makes a decent amount of sense. But yeah, if FNaF 1 is in 1992, which makes sense because then it accounts for the Godfather Part 3 reference because it came out in 1990. It accounts for the Sega Genesis because it came out in 1989, and all the other references I believe are before that. And it makes sense with the paycheck in FNaF 1 and 2 being the same date and falling on the same day. That all makes sense. And then if FNaF 3 is 2015, then that accounts for the real value. So that makes sense. I'm going to continue watching the video.
Place in 2023, but instead 2017, or very possibly 2015. I know this contradicts a years-long consensus, but let me explain myself. The real value code is a legitimate code in the logbook. I've seen some people dismiss it because, oh, we already used that page for the Cassidy code, like it couldn't be used for multiple things. But that take completely ignores the fact that even though those pages were used for another code, Michael still tells us to look at page 62 to find the real value of the $16 coupon. This code is intended to show us the year Michael filled out this book. I don't think that should be disputed. That year, then, also has to be the year FNaF 3 takes place. The only other quote-unquote...
Yeah, I'd say it does make a lot of sense because Michael's... The logbooks are meant to be... Because they're in FNaF 3, they're very clearly meant to be, like, an homage to the original logbooks, like, from, like, the original Freddy's days. So it's, like, everything is, like, copied over, but probably just, like, the Freddy's location in the background has changed to FNaF 3 so that... like, the FNaF 3 people can actually, like, have it be associated with them. Because FNaF 3 is all about revisiting the past, basically. It's all about having all the stuff from the original Freddy's locations in an amusement park, a horror attraction, dedicated to those Freddy's locations. So having an authentic logbook from that time makes a lot of sense. So they would copy over all the fun facts, the quizzes, the numbers, everything like that. But now Michael is filling this out in FNaF 3, so maybe the FNaF 3 people didn't account for the actual value, or they just didn't care because it was meant to be authentic. And then Michael was like, oh yeah, but this is also not the original one, so this is the real value. You can find it here on this page, where, yeah, it shows you the thing. So I think that makes a lot of sense, just for it to be like... Just for it to, like, add up properly. Like, I think it makes sense for Michael to write that, just because he's filling out an authentic logbook based on 1992 logbooks, but in 2015. I think that makes sense. I'm not 100% sure if FNaF 3 would be 2015. Like, I could definitely see it. I still kind of find the idea of it slightly weird that it's not 30 years after FNaF 1, just because it's like 30 years after Freddy's closed. And yes, it closed in 1985 and 1987, but like it closed for the last time when FNaF 1, at the end of FNaF 1. So, yeah. I don't know. Like it works. It just doesn't work as flawlessly, I guess, but it still works. So it's not a huge deal.
This is a handwave and dismissal. Oh, other that year then also has to be the year FNaF 3 takes place.
I agree.
The only other quote-unquote arguments I've seen against this is a handwave and dismissal. Oh gosh, not that.
I think its conclusion is slightly wrong, or like slightly off. Probably, like, not really, because he is saying 2015, so that works. But I think the basis is slightly flawed, because he's saying FNaF 1 is in 1993, which isn't a huge deal, because it being in 1992 is just 1 year difference. But then saying FNaF 3 is 2017, like, based on FNaF 1 being in 1993, slightly off. But I think methodology makes sense, and I think he's on the right track. But I think that, like, just the conclusion is slightly off, but very slightly, so it's not a huge deal. And like I said, he is still saying that 2015 works, so he's not really wrong. Like, he's giving multiple options, so like they work, right?
Can't be serious and then ignoring it. So let's start with acknowledging the fact that this exists and is a thing. Next is to realize that even if I'm solving the code all wrong with the multiplication or the coupon 0 or whatever else, it is literally impossible for the logbook to give a year any later than 2017. Why? Because the logbook was released in late December 2017, and the code relies on knowing the inflation rate. It's not possible for the answer to somehow come out to be 2023, because neither Scott nor the designer of the book could possibly know the inflation rates of 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. So
imagine if hold on. What was I completely forgot what I was about to say, like, mid-sentence. How funny would it be if Scott was like, okay, I'm gonna do this really clever thing with the inflation rates, and then it turned out to be a prime number? What would he have done? Like, he couldn't use a chalkboard and math to do it. He would have to be like, he would have to do addition rather than multiplication, because if it's a prime number, it wouldn't work at all.
That some fan could finally solve it 6 years later after it came out. 2017 is the very latest it could be, and even that might be pushing it because of how long the process of publication can take. Why the year 2017, though? After all, FNaF 3's description says that the game takes place, quote, 30 years after Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closed its doors.
2017 works because,
closing of Freddy's,
like I said, it makes logical sense, like, in order. Like FNaF 1, FNaF 2, FNaF 3. FNaF 1, 1992, question mark. FNaF 2, 1987. In FNaF 2, Freddy's closes. FNaF 3, 30 years after Freddy's closes. So, in a linear sense, it makes sense to be 30 years after FNaF 2. So that would place it in 2017. So that does work.
Pizzerias that we know of. In 1985, when all locations shut down following the MCI. In 1983, with the FNaF 2 location. And then in 1993, with the FNaF 1 location. 2017 does check out as still being 30 years after, quote, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closed its doors, it being 30 years after FNaF 2, but wouldn't it make the most sense for it to be referring to the last and final closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza? Yes, it absolutely would make more sense. I'm not denying that. Despite that,
it would make more sense, but it's not the only thing that makes sense.
FNaF 1 location closing. Why would Scott make the 30 years in reference to the FNaF 2 locations closing? The only reason I can think of is that, at the time, this was the only Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closing that had a definitive date attached to it.
Fair enough.
The most recent one in terms of game release.
Yeah,
and we
exactly.
actually see the FNaF 2 location shut down at the end of the game, unlike in FNaF 1, where it's only stated that the pizzeria will shut down by the end of the year, and only in an Easter egg news clipping. It might have just been the closing on the forefront of Scott's mind. In fact, around the time of FNaF 3, I remember seeing many more people call 2017 the year of FNaF 3 than 2023. I don't think it's that big of a stretch. But there's also a chance that FNaF 3 is yet a different year, 2015. The real value code only gives the year 2017 if you place the coupon in 1993, the theorized year of FNaF 1. But FNaF 1 might actually take place in 1992 instead. I know this is a lot of timeline shifting I'm proposing, but stick with me. 1993 has been generally agreed upon as the year of FNaF 1 ever since MatPat made his first FNaF 1 theory 9 years ago.
Hold on. I apologize. I just want to sniff a little bit. Actually, I'm just going to go to the washroom and blow my nose. I'll be right back. That was an abrupt stop to the music. I didn't really mean to do that, but whatever. I am back. And I brought myself cookies. I wanted cookies. Parle G cookies. Nom nom. Anyway.
Where he matched up Mike's hourly wage. 1993 has been generally agreed upon as the year of FNaF 1 ever since MatPat made his first FNaF 1 theory 9 years ago, where he matched up Mike's hourly wage to the minimum wage of that time. However, the specific year, 1983, was reached under the assumption that the first day of work was a Monday, and that Mike's first paycheck was a Friday, which is a pretty reasonable assumption. Future me cutting in. I checked the video again, and it turns out he doesn't actually use the days of the week. MatPat only lands on the year 1993 specifically because that was the year of the actual real-life murders that he was comparing the game to, which, yeah... Anyway, but in FNaF 2, which has a definitive year, the first workday is a Sunday, and Mike's first paycheck is on a Thursday. If we assume that it was the same for FNaF 1, that puts the game 1 year back in 1992. Some people, though, might point to one of the scrapped Faz facts from FNaF AR, which said, Fazbear's Twisted Pizza recipe was voted most yummy by 6 out of 10 children in every survey from 1988 to 1993. However, there are a couple things to note about this. Unlike the scrapped emails, which were all intended to be used until they were abruptly cut off, The fast facts are entirely separate from these, and there's no indication in the final product of the game that these were ever going to be used. In fact, there was actually an Illumix stream a while back, which was unfortunately not archived, but a couple people who attended the livestream have claimed that the Illumix employees said that the fast facts were created without input from Scott. Also, Technical FNaF, a pretty respectable Twitter account that showcases cut content and other technical aspects of the game, recently tweeted that an Illumix employee confirmed exactly this, adding that they should not be used for lore at all. This was apparently an actual employee they spoke to, and not an anonymous DM or anything. So, ignoring the scrapped fast fact, there's nothing against FNaF 1 taking place in 1992. And the value of $16 in 1992 comes out to be $27 in the year 2015.
Yes.
Which happens to be exactly 30 years after the MCI and the subsequent closing of all Freddy Fazbear's Pizza locations. This works a bit better than 2017 because this would have been the big closing everyone in Universe would remember. In 1985, Freddy's was in its heyday with multiple locations, when it all suddenly shut down due to the missing children, which certainly got lots of news coverage.
What I find kind of
On
funny
the other hand,
is every time anybody mentions this video in the comments of my videos, it's always 2017. No one ever mentions 2015. They always just say that the code brings it to 2017. I feel like people don't finish watching the video. They just jump to the conclusion immediately.
FNaF 1 Pizzeria's popularity simply fizzled out until they were forced to close after struggling to bring in customers. But whether or not FNaF 3 takes place in 2015 or 2017, what's most important is that it's not 2023 like everyone has believed. But why is this so important? Sure, it's kind of interesting, but it doesn't seem like something that would affect the lore that much. Well, there's been a lot of debate recently over the timeline of the Pizzaplex saga after we learned from Tales from the Pizzaplex that the timeline is actually a lot tighter than we initially thought. People have gone from suggesting that security breach happened in the 2040s or 50s or even later
To be fair,
to the most popular years now being 20...
Now, Tails isn't in the games, so this stuff doesn't really matter, but I do want to skip to this part. Yeah, I know FNaF 6 exists. I want to check what that's about.
Lastly, there is one other hiccup, however, and there's a good chance you've been waiting for me to bring this up. There's still Pizzeria Simulator, which people place in 2023 because of the HRY 223 recording, and this theory would require that it not be in 2023. Because if FNaF 3 is 2015, but Pizza Sim is still 2023, that doesn't really help that much, does it? Really though, I've never been totally convinced that 223 is supposed to mean 2023, because that's just not how you abbreviate a year. You don't leave out a digit in the middle. If the number means anything, it would make more sense for it to be a date, 2/23, February 23rd. Or, maybe not. Maybe Pizza Sim is still 2023, and the Tales from the Pizzaplex time...
To be fair, I think that I've always been convinced by the 223. I've always only ignored it recently because I had to believe that it was in 2015, but because because of Tales games. But obviously that's not true anymore, so that doesn't really matter. But I think that FNaF 6, that being the year, I've always thought that was the case. And it being a date, I mean, it could be, but I feel like because it lines up timeline-wise, like, to be in 2023, like, especially before, like, all the Tales stuff, like, with FNaF 3 being in, like, 2015, or even theoretically being in 2023, as some people suggested way back then, and a lot of people still believe now. But I think having that knowledge, Scott intentionally would have put 223 to clarify that this game was in 2023, because why else would he do that specific number? It being February 23rd doesn't really matter that much. I would also say that it does perfectly make sense to be a date, because sure, you don't abbreviate dates like that, but you also don't abbreviate Henry as HRY, because you just left out the N. Like, you're not keeping it locked in as the full name. Like, you could easily read that as Harry. Like, there's no definitive thing saying that that's the name Henry, but we know that it is. So So 223 meaning 2023, it's not that far-fetched.
That makes no sense, and maybe FNAF 3 being in 2015 or 2017 is just a cool fact with no significance. That would kinda suck. Which is why I'm going to stick with Pizza Sim happening shortly after FNAF 3, and not in 2023. I want to give an honorable mention to another theory that explains the logbook in a different way. It's called meta logbook. Basically, the theory is that the logbook isn't strictly canon. It doesn't have a place in the timeline and isn't meant to be interpreted literally. It's just a cobbled together activity book that contains meta clues to help theorists solve the lore. In other words, people find the logbook too hard to explain, so they decide that it actually doesn't need explaining at all, despite the fact that it's perfectly possible to come up with an explanation for the logbook that perfectly fits with the games. It's pretty much the ultimate cop-out theory, a way for theorists to have their cake and eat it too. They want to take the lore hints they like, but don't want to deal with all the other implications of the logbook they don't like. You know, so they don't have to shift their understanding of FNAF 3. Michael drawing Nightmare Fredbear? Yeah, that means he's the FNAF 4 player. Michael evidently getting this book from Fazbear's Fright? Well, that's clearly just a non-canon quirk of the logbook. The Cassidy code telling us the name of Golden Freddy? Of course, it's a clear lore hint. The real value hint that Michael writes, however? I mean... Okay, I actually have no idea how meta logbookers explain the real value thing. In fact, the real value code pretty much single-handedly disproves this theory, because it's an intentional lore hint no matter what, which means the year that Michael fills out the logbook is important. And that can't be important without it being canon that Michael actually does fill out the logbook.
What I'll say is that meta logbook is kind of a cherry-picking theory, but I think that it kind of makes sense if you're saying that Michael filled out the logbook, the faded and altered texts are communicating, but those are two separate events. So if you say, like, the logbook is a real thing, Michael actually fills out the logbook, but the conversation that's happening within the logbook, that's not actually happening in the logbook is just like a medium to display it. It's kind of like in Sister Location, or like in the source code of the two Scott websites back in like the FNAF 6 days or whatever, how it was like the conversation between Baby and Ennard, and like how they booted Baby out of the Ennard tribe, as Matt Pat put it. That was all about. That's what that was all about, but that didn't literally happen in the source code, right? So like you could say the same with the logbook. It's not the conversation is a real conversation. The logbook is a real logbook that Michael fills out, but the conversation within the logbook is not actually happening within the logbook canonically. The logbook is just a medium to show us that conversation outside of just saying it in the games or whatever, if that makes sense, you know? So like I can get behind that. I'm not saying I necessarily believe that. I might. I don't really have an opinion on that. But I think that it makes sense that way. But I don't think that the logbook as a whole is just meta. Like, I think the conclusions like that real value page, like, that's a real thing that Michael wrote in the logbook. But the conversation in the logbook between, theoretically, Cassidy and the bite victim, that's not what's happening in the logbook. That's just another conversation that the logbook is showing us for lore reasons, you know? It's not literally happening in the logbook. That's what I say makes sense. Not saying I necessarily believe it or that I necessarily don't believe it. I'm just saying that makes sense, but saying the logbook as a whole is completely meta and entirely isn't in universe, is just for lore hints, that... Nah.
The only reason for the real value code to exist is to give a time reference for the logbook, and that's useless unless the logbook actually fits into the timeline and the contents of the book matter. So no, this theory does not hold up to scrutiny. Right before I end this though, I was just reminded of one more thing. In the FNAF AR emails, Vanessa's username is Nessie97. Often, 2 numbers at the end of someone's username represents the year they were born. Some people think the 97 could stand for 9/7, as in September 7th, but that's mainly because Vanessa being born in 1997 doesn't work for their timelines.
Well, it's more so because she was actually born in September, we know that. So that makes sense.
Scrapped emails say that Vanessa is 23 at the time, which would put FNAF AR in the year 2020.
Her birthday is in September, yeah.
But this actually works out perfectly fine if FNAF 3 and Pizza Sim occur earlier in the timeline.
It would.
Just something I wanted to mention.
But I would say
And
they
that
probably
wraps up
don't.
my big theory. Feel free
FNAF
to
3
offer
maybe.
criticism in the
FNAF 6
comments,
probably not.
and subscribe if you want to see more theory videos.
At least with the knowledge that Tails is not in the games, because then the timeline doesn't have to be so squished together.
This.
But the
Alright.
CRBC
That was cool. Obviously I didn't watch the full thing, but I watched a decent amount of it. I think 1997 is a lot more compelling as a year than 2023, personally. I would not agree, because, like I said before, HRY223 just overall isn't good with abbreviations. HRY definitely doesn't make sense to be Henry. We just know that it is, because we know Henry exists as a character. So, like, being 223, meaning 2023, I think that makes sense. Nessie 97, I think, in concept, that makes more sense to be a year, but in concept, it makes more sense to be a year, but in context, it doesn't. Because, like I said, Vanessa's birthday is in September. So, the 9 being September, and then the 7 just being, like, the day in September does make sense. I think it just kind of depends on, like, what your timeline stance is, but... I'm not sure when FNAF 6 takes place. I just think it takes place before 2023. Or before 2020. I would say it probably is just in 2023. Because, well, I just think it makes more sense. Because of, the fact that the timeline doesn't need to be squeezed together so much now that Tails isn't in the games. So there's no reason that it can't be in 2023, and still leave room for, like, security breach and all that to be later on in, like, 2035, theoretically. Alright, so, what do we want to do now? Alright. Do you want to do reading comments, or do we want to do theory reactions? See, at some point in the near future, I want to do a video or a stream called FNAF Catch-Up Day, where I basically catch up on, like, FNAF stuff that I've missed, whether over the past few days or months or year, because I never played the 5 Laps of Freddy's demo, and recently there was a new update for it, so I kind of want to check it out. I saw one 5 Laps at Freddy's Theory. Like, I haven't watched it, but like I saw people post it on Discord, like about how people are saying like it could be maybe like the next FNaF 6, like how it's like built up to be just like a fun normal game, but it's actually a horror game like FNaF 6. And it's like, I mean, I haven't seen anything of 5 Laps at Freddy's. I could see that being the case because of the way that like the teasers for it were. Like if those were the teasers, I remember there were like there was some like Click Team teasers or whatever. One of them was like a lot darker, and I'm pretty sure Click Team is making 5 Laps at Freddy's, so like I wouldn't be surprised if that was what that was for. And those are darker teasers, so I wouldn't be surprised if 5 Laps at Freddy's was a darker game. But overall, like I haven't played the game myself yet, so I want to do that before I watch that theory. And I also have never played Dead by Daylight before. But Springtrap is in it now. And it was on sale, so I bought it. It was like $15. Like, the game and the FNaF edition. Collectively was like about $15. So I would want to do both of those things in like a FNaF catch-up day stream. I was thinking about doing these theory reactions in that stream, but like if I have time right now, like I have a bunch of time right now, I could easily just do it right now. Yes, I know, Freb, you're like begging me to do the game theories on Secret of the Mimic. FNaF 4 and David's Bedroom are similar, but they're not the same. Well, yeah, obviously, like there's very clear differences between them, but there's also very clear similarities. You can tell David's Bedroom is intended to be the FNaF 4 bedroom. Or not be it, but like look like it. So it's clear that that David's Bedroom is what the FNaF 4 bedroom was based on. For sure. Who do you think the Golden Freddy Kid in Happiest Day is? It's tough to say because I think it's a little bit complicated in a way because I know that some people say it's the bite victim, some people say it's Cassidy. I would personally say that it's probably the bite victim, but it was supposed to be Cassidy, if that makes sense. So all of Happiest Day is based on the bite victim's memories. All the pieces of Happiest Day, all the actual Happiest Day itself, every minigame leading up to and including Happiest Day is a memory of the bite victim turned into its own thing. So knowing that, it makes a lot of sense that the bite victim set up Happiest Day and Cassidy was supposed to be set free in it, but that she decided to stay out of it. And because it was the bite victim's party. And that actually makes a lot of sense if you consider like the logbook and the line "the party was for you." What if that actually means, more specifically, the party wasn't for me? So I shouldn't. You're trying to make me say you're trying to make me the receiver, but I shouldn't be the receiver because it was your party. You should be the receiver. So either she stays behind or she's just set free as a separate character. Because there's 16 balloons in there. There's a bunch of people that are probably there. Like you could say Michael, Elizabeth are probably there. Maybe even Andrew if he exists. But like they could all be in Happiest Day. You could say Cassidy's still there too. Just not as the receiver, I guess, if that makes sense. So this is gonna sound wild, but I think the Golden Freddy Kid is casting, Crying Child is the puppet in Happiest Day. I've actually heard people say that before. I don't agree with that, but I've heard of that take before, yeah. Using his own memory. Crying Child is the one who plays in all the Happiest Day minigames, I believe. He's using his own memories for the MCI kids. Jake is using his own memory to free Andrew. I mean, I don't think that he's the player, but I do agree that he's using his memories to free the MCI kids. But I think that that's, like, I don't think that means he's not a part of it. I think it just means, like, his original plan was to free all the missing kids, and then Cassidy was like, I shouldn't receive this party, you should, because it's yours. Isn't Cassidy the princess? A lot of people say no now because of the whole thing with how they removed the name Cassidy from the files of security breach for the princess. I, though, personally still think that the princess is Cassidy. First of all, this is not a reason I believe it, but it does make it a lot more convenient to believe that the princess is Cassidy, because there's not really any solid design for Cassidy that I can use for video, so using the princess is very convenient. But the three main reasons I believe that Cassidy is the princess. One, she's golden, and Cassidy's Golden Freddy, so it makes sense. Two, there's also the It's Me in the files of Security Breach's Princess Quest, which is a line attributed to Golden Freddy. And three, the end of Princess Quest 2 has Cassidy enter a room with Old Man Consequences, and he says it's time to sleep, aka time to rest. And in FNaF, in Ultimate Custom Night, tells Cassidy, rest your own soul. So I interpret that as being, like, kind of parallels of the same event. It's Old Man Consequences telling Cassidy to rest in both cases. So I think it just makes more sense for Cassidy to be the princess. And with, like, the logbook, she's, like, trying to help the bite victim remember things. So I think it makes sense, like, for that to mean... Oh, also, there's also a FNaF World, where if that Ultimate Custom Night Old Man Consequences minigame has Cassidy as the player, then in FNaF World, theoretically, Cassidy could also be the player of that game, because that Old Man Consequences minigame is also in that. So it would be weird for that red Freddy character to be two different characters, even though it's the same minigame in both cases. So I feel like it would make sense if Cassidy was the player of FNaF World, if that makes sense, and, like, have her be trying to help the puppet set the bite victim free. I'm not sure about that. I also have ideas that the player of FNaF World could be, like, Shadow Bonnie or something, like, as a helpful spirit for the puppet, because I think that Shadow Bonnie was created from the agony of Charlotte's death. But I think that it makes sense that, like, they're setting Charlotte and Cassidy, or Charlotte and Shadow Freddy, one of the two. But theoretically, if Cassidy was the player of FNaF World, then she would be helping she would be helping Charlie put the pieces of Happy State together so that the bite victim can find them and actually fully put them together. So then in that case, those two things, they kind of imply Cassidy to be a very helpful spirit. Like, she seems vengeful in some cases, but I feel like her nature is to mostly be a helpful spirit, to help the other spirits along with Charlotte, for her and Charlotte to help guide the other spirits in a way. And that's probably kind of why she's, like, more separate from the others as well. She's a missing kid and she's grouped in with them, but she's also kind of separate in a way. So I think with that knowledge in mind, it also makes sense. Oh, also, what I mentioned in my Andrew theory was that she seems to be trying to help Andrew stop torturing Afton. So it's like she's trying to help the spirits. So knowing that, her being the princess also makes a lot of sense, because she's trying to help Vanessa escape Plushtrap. So overall, I think a lot of evidence outside of just the original file name implies that Cassidy probably was the princess, and probably still is. I get people being like, hey, the file name was removed, so she might just not be anymore. And I get that. But I feel like it doesn't really make sense that... I feel like it doesn't make sense that Vanessa would be the princess, because in FNaF VR, we have the scene of her being locked behind the door. And then in Princess Quest, we have the scene of the princess opening that door and freeing Vanessa. It would be weird if it was Vanessa freeing Vanessa. You know what I mean? So I think it just makes more sense for Cassidy to be the princess in that, for all those reasons. Anyway, hey Century, I gotta scroll up because you guys have said a lot in the time that I was talking. Hello Century. Do you believe in glitch both? What? I think the glitch bear is Charlotte. Because... yeah. Because the puppet set up Happiest Day, and the glitch... or the puppet set up the pieces of Happiest Day for the bite victims to find. Glitch bear set up the pieces of Happiest Day for the bite victim to find. Therefore, bada bing, bada boom, same person. So I think also, I think that Afton is the Fredbear plushie in the main first 5 minigames. And I think that because the text color changes, it just seems like they would not be the same person. It wouldn't be Afton the whole time. And like I said, I don't think that Afton is the final speaker. And the final speaker is the glitch bear. Like, they're the same character. So it being Charlotte just makes more sense. Personally, I think it makes most sense for the player FNaF world to be the crying child. Glitch bear's dialogue does mess with that, though. Yeah, I mean, we're setting up the pieces of Happiest Day for the bite victim to find. So yeah, that's kind of it. Like, you can't have the bite victim set up the pieces for himself to find, especially since the glitch bear is like, set up the pieces so that he can find his way. Why would she be saying, hey, bite victim, set up the pieces so that he, as in you, can find your way? That doesn't make sense. Theory of the glitch trap is Afton the Mimic. There's no point in it being the Mimic, then, if it's just his spirit anyway. Glitch both means a glitch trap is both William and the Mimic. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. First shadow victim evidence. I think that Puppet took the victim spirit from the old friend. I believe shadow victim. I made a whole theory on it. I have no idea what you're saying right now, though. Yeah, I made a whole theory on shadow victim, which is probably one of the theories that I've made that I'm probably like the most proud of. I actually really like that theory. When was that? November 14th I released that. And then I went on a FNaF theory dry spell until I posted a theory November 14th. That was my shadow victim theory. That was my last theory until March 24th. I went 4 months without uploading a FNaF theory. Yeah. Damn. That's why I've been trying to do as many as possible now and like actually get them out instead of like taking so long to do them. I kind of paused writing theories for a little bit. Like I have one finished theory that I still need to record, but I have a full theory written. I'll probably record it in a couple days, but because I'm kind of busy over the next couple days, but I'll probably record it on like Friday or something. But I think yeah, I blanked for a second. I finished writing a theory, haven't recorded it yet, but I kind of paused. I wanted to finish that one and then pause writing theories for a bit. That's also why I released my Andrew theory yesterday. I finished editing it on like the 19th, so like 4 days ago. And usually I release theories the day after I finish editing them. Like I finish it at night and then I release it at like noon or afternoon the next day. But with the Andrew theory, I didn't do that. I finished it, and then I released it like 3 days later because I wanted to give myself time to actually read my comic book, my Fantastic Four one, because I wanted to read it before I watched the movie. I'll probably watch it like in a week or so, but I think the whole like I think that I kind of struggled to actually read though because I worked the entire past 4 days. I worked Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So I never really had time to read, or well, I did after work, and then I stayed up until like 5 a.m. for some reason. But I didn't actually read. I started reading until like 2 days ago, so I kind of like screwed myself because I was like, oh yeah, I'll finish this theory. I'll finish writing this theory, and then I'll release this theory a little bit later, so that I have time between that theory releasing and me releasing my next theory to read my Fantastic Four comic. And then I didn't read my Fantastic Four comic. I'm a little over halfway through it though right now. It's actually really good. I like it a lot. This is the second comic book I've actually ever read. I have 2 comic books that I ordered yesterday that are downstairs right now. I got The Flash Rebirth and Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. I have a bunch of comic books that I just haven't gotten around to reading yet. I'm in a heavy buying comics phase. I'm not in a heavy reading comics phase yet, but I'm starting to kind of get into it, because I read All-Star Superman before seeing the Superman movie, and now I'm reading Fantastic Four before seeing Fantastic Four. So, can you write a T-Dread's God David theory? Oh god, okay. How long is it? That's the first thing I need to know. Okay. It's an hour long. I'm not sure I want to do that. It's an hour long. I don't think I want to do that. At least not today. Maybe a future theory. I think I'll do some FNaF theory reactions though. Not to that theory, but I'll watch the game theories and the FNaF theory. Why not? Everything you know about FNaF is a lie.
Layer on the arms.
I don't believe it is. Alright. When people call memory victim God victim, I die inside. Why do people call it? Okay. Well. See, I'm gonna be watching more than an hour's worth of FNaF theories. But the thing is, I don't want to spend my time on that one. I want to spend my time on this one. So, anyway, keep in mind, every time that an ad pops up, I'm gonna mute it, and then I'm gonna go silent, because I'm turning these into videos, and I always cut out the ads, so it's easier to find where to cut out if I just go mute. Because, like, I'll look at, like, the audio waveforms, and it'll be like, blah, 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 ad. Blah, 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 ad. So that I just know, like, when there's no talking and no sound at all, that's when I stop. That's what I cut out, because that's where the ad is. Anyway. Game theory. Everything you know about FNaF is a lie. This is the first Secret of the Mimic FNaF theory. I am excited to see it. Actually, wait. I've been recording this whole time. I'll probably turn that into like a FNaF theory discussion video or something like that. But I'm going to redo that intro because that's going to be the intro for the video. I stopped the recording and now I'm starting a new recording so that I can actually edit better rather than having a 2-hour or like a 2 or 3 hour long video to like cut out the first 2 hours of, because that'll be annoying. Because sometimes that like might make my editing software lag. Anyway.
Secret.
Whoops. Sorry. So, game theory. Everything you know about FNaF is a lie. This is the first FNaF game theory on Secret of the Mimic. I haven't seen any yet. I know there's 2 out now, and then there's a FNaF theory that all 3 I'm going to react to. All on this stream, and all turned into videos. So, let's watch.
Secret of the Mimic is finally here, and it changes everything. Our understanding of the books, our understanding of the timeline, and our understanding of the characters we've come to know over the last 11 years. But as always,
there is a lot of stuff in that game.
Afton, or an Edwin, as it turns out, and put it all back together. Hello Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that's jaw has been hanging open like a badly made Chica costume ever since the release of FNAF's Secret of the Mimic. And I'm not alone in that feeling. Every single YouTuber has been completely sideswiped by this game. Chica! I can't believe we got Chica! Hey! Oh!
there she is! That's insane!
Why has it taken us all by surprise? Well, besides the fact the game actually works, mostly, it also did something that is completely unheard
Unlike
of
security
in
breach.
a FNAF game. They actually gave us a story. And I don't mean the super cryptic kind that we have to spend years and years figuring out. I mean the kind that actually helps us move forward in this franchise. For a
Yay.
long time, the community has been frustrated.
There's so much lore in this game that I listen. I've released what 4 theories on Secret of the Mimic. My recent Andrew theory wasn't technically a Secret of the Mimic theory. It was inspired by it a little bit, but it wasn't like about it, right? So I've released I think 4 Secret of the Mimic theories, right? And I'm not nearly like I have like at least 3 more to release like that I still have like coming. Like I have a theory on like origins of the timeline. I have a theory on the future FNAF. I have a theory just about Fall Fest, and I have a theory about like the books again, like another theory on like how those all work together with the games and stuff. So I still have a decent amount left to theorize about. With Ruin, I think I had like 5 theories or so, something like that. At least to begin with, maybe 4, maybe 5, 6, something like that. Secret of the Mimic, I have at the moment probably about 8. So. Yeah, there's a lot in this game.
With the lack of clarification out there for this series. It's been years of theory upon theory upon theory. And while we have come to certain agreements for parts of it, there are still massive sections of the lore that we haven't been able to agree on simply because there's never really been a solid foundation to jump off of. But now, after 11 years of this franchise, Secret of the Mimic came as the earliest entry in the FNAF timeline and said, guys, I got you. Giving us relatively clear breakdowns of how the early years of Fazbear came to be, as well as throwing a bunch of hand cranks into the works that make us question everything we knew about this franchise. There's timelines that have been displaced, character personas completely shattered, and understandings of where the future of this franchise is going totally flipped on its head. And I intend to theorize about all of it in a 3-part series across the next
3
month
parts,
or so,
okay,
focusing on the 3 main characters from this new game: the newcomer Edwin Murray and his family, the big bad Mimic, and, of course, Fazbear Entertainment, William Afton, and Henry. All of that will then be followed up with a live talkback with a bunch of other FNAF theorists to discuss the game, our differing theories, and generally just talking about the franchise that we've all enjoyed for so long. Dates for that are TBD right now, so make sure you're subscribed so that when I do announce it, you'll be the first to know, and to make sure you don't miss all of the crazy theories leading up to it, because believe me, you don't want to miss them. There are some real bombshells in this game that I want to explore. But for now, let's start from the beginning. We jump into the game as a lowly mechanic working for the wonderful as always Fazbear Entertainment. Our name is Arnold, and we've just gotten off of a 36-hour
That is not how you drive.
Called in for one last
I've never
job.
driven in my life, but that's not how you drive.
From one of their contractors, Edwin Murray. Begrudgingly, we head to Murray's costume manor, only to discover the asset is a set of blueprints for a killer animatronic endoskeleton that can fit into any costume and learn the role of any character or person, the Mimic. We gain access to different areas of the facility by upgrading our data diver with different permissions, from basic to security, repair, all the way up to executive privileges, all while trying to outrun or outweight the Mimic.
He's going for it.
Eventually, we get our hands on the blueprints, only to discover that it wasn't Fazbear talking to us through dispatch. It was the Mimic pretending to be them to get their hands on the data diver. This leads to one of 3 endings where we either escape and get killed by the Mimic, we escape and get killed by the Mimic.
I think it was, I think for the beginning of the game, it was Dispatch. It was actually Fazbear Entertainment. But then it cuts off at like 1 or 2 a.m., right? Isn't there like a glitch part at that point? And like, I think like the goal is like slightly altered or something. So that, like, Dispatch kind of like not really changes their mind completely, but like there's like some differences in like what he wants us to do, right? So like it seems like the Mimic is like actually trying to get us. it's trying to get all the permissions or whatever, and all the information, all the Mimic blueprints themselves, and then it wants to use them on itself.
Or we fix the Mimic and then just stand there watching it sleep. Now, these guys deserve an episode of their own, because whichever one is canon could have massive implications that I just don't have time to get into right now. Instead, let's turn our attention to the stuff we can discover during the game. And the first of our big three characters, Edwin Murray. If you're a longtime viewer of this channel, or you're one of the people who understands my pain and has actually read the books, then that name isn't anything new. Edwin Murray is a character that we were introduced to in both the Storyteller and the Mimic from the Tales from the Peterplex series. His company was bought out by Fazbear. He created the Mimic to babysit his son David, but his son...
Hold on. That's the wrong book. He put Tiger Rock. It's supposed to be in Bob Adams' Conclusion. That's what the Storyteller was. I know that's the tiger that the Storyteller was like was originally before it became Tiger Rock, but that's the wrong book.
His company was bought out by Fazbear. He created the Mimic to babysit his son David, but his son tragically died. And because the Mimic kept mimicking his dead son, he beat the thing up, teaching it violence, and then showed up 40 years later trying to stop it. However, when The Secret of the Mimic's creative director Evan Lampe said to Dorco,
"If you've read the books, you don't know the full story."
He wasn't kidding. The story of Edwin goes so much deeper and is so much more tragic than we could have ever realized. As Arnold explores Murray's costume manor, we can find audio recordings and mailboxes containing digital text logs that give us the real story of what happened to this place. It was originally owned by Edwin's father, who we'll call Murray Sr. Edwin Murray works for him.
Edwin Murray. This is my dad's place.
You know, because nepotism. But Edwin is the quirky inventor type, and to test out his new voice recorder creation, he seeks out one of the new employees and former puppeteers.
Excuse me. Can I borrow your voice for a project?
Oh, what for? I don't even know you. I'm brand new here. Let's start again. I'm Fiona.
Murray Sr. then passes away and leaves the whole thing to Edwin, who rebrands everything to bring his wacky inventions to life.
Maybe rebrand? We could start making some of my inventions for real.
Together with Fiona,
It
they
doesn't
invent
work out
a
bad.
bunch of wild tech, like a coffee machine that can learn your coffee preferences to make the perfect cup, a coat hanger that can adjust to any size you need, and an adorable vacuum cleaner. Oh, just look at him with his tiny little brooms and his little dumpy. Anyway, alongside this, he is also making a bunch of costumes, which I suppose makes sense given that's the name of the business. But the characters we see are interesting if you're a FNaF fan. We see a handful of characters that you might recognize, like Pirate and Cowgirl Roxy, Hillbilly Monty, a puppet pirate Foxy, and the big one, a rollerblading costume of Chica.
It is. That's freaking Chica.
Let's party.
She really was the first, wasn't she? But besides Chica, who Edwin and Fiona were specifically hired to make for a client, Chica's Party World, yes, that Chica's Party World, all of these other characters were rentable or purchasable from Murray's costume manor, meaning Edwin owned these characters. They weren't originally Fazbear's. However, Fazbear was around as another one of Edwin's clients, taking interest in his technological genius, even to the point where Edwin refers to Henry as simply Hen in the audio logs, presumably because they have a level of familiarity
they're probably friends.
and friendship thanks to their shared technological creativity.
I got the
They love
order
each
from
other.
Hen last night. They don't think of me as a friend anymore.
But the real tragedy of Edwin comes
Anymore.
from when we look at his family. I've mentioned his wife Fiona, but he also has a son named David, just like he did in the Tales from the Peterplex book series. Unlike that series though, Fiona doesn't die in childbirth. She's still around during David's early years, until she tragically passes away, leaving Edwin to run the business and raise David all on his own, leading Edwin to come up with the only logical solution: build an animatronic that can babysit David, obviously. obviously. He creates the M1 Mimic. But something strange happens. It begins to not just look after David, but mimic Edwin's dead wife, Fiona. The family is back together again. Until it's not. One day, David dies outside the facility, leaving Edwin completely devastated. At the same time, the business is completely crumbling around him. But M1 Fiona has a solution. Make another one of her.
Edwin.
Figuring out money as a young adult.
Why does every ad have to be 15 seconds and unskippable? Seriously.
While you can.
You can't put it off any longer. You need to try again. Build another.
Make another mimic that would now mimic David so that they could be together again. Edwin isn't convinced at first, but eventually he gives in. He takes M1
Yeah, and then he
out
gets
of the
pissed and he's
endoskeleton,
like, this is
copies
a
the
bad
program,
idea.
and creates M2, putting the new program into the endoskeleton. And it works. M2 begins acting like David, but it's too much for Edwin to handle, and he snaps.
It seems to take a while to work though. Like there's like all the failed mimic bodies, like the smaller ones with like a bunch of like random pieces on them. Those seem to have been like the original ideas like for David's body, because especially since they're small, they're meant to be a child, but he's trying to build a new body for it, but none of them are a suitable host except for the original mimic, so he has to take the Fiona program out and then put in David's.
Beating the animatronic, breaking its legs, and teaching it the valuable lesson of violence that Arnold now gets to experience firsthand. With that failure under his belt and the business still struggling, Edwin locks himself away with his final Fazbear project, a restaurant called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. But M2 has other plans. It destroys the house, and Edwin is never seen or heard from again. It's a real sad ending, but you see what I mean about how it upends a lot of what we thought we knew? We've got characters we thought were Fazbears now created by someone else. We've got a wildly different setup to Edwin and his family than we saw in the books, and this is just the top level stuff that's been given to us on a plate. The more you dig into these things,
I mean, I think that the main Fazbear characters like Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Fredbear, Spring Bonnie, I think they were always made by Edwin. Or not Edwin, sorry. They were always made by Henry, but Edwin just like made his own. Edwin and Fiona both made their own designs for them because, I mean, he was told to.
the more things begin to change and shift our understanding of the entire franchise. But we've got some time, so let's keep things simple for now. We've been given a bunch of information about Edwin, his family, and his company. But what is the timeline of these events? This is FNaF after all. Timelines are a staple for FNaF theorists everywhere. And I don't just mean a vague order of events. I mean cold, hard dates. Well, as you might expect, this game is pretty careful to leave those sorts of details hidden, only giving us months or days for dates at best. They even block out years so we can't place exact details. But when has that ever stopped us before? Let's start with the very first teaser for this game. In it, we saw the number 1979 showing up on a film reel, giving us a pretty good indication that that was when this game would take place. And once we boot up the game, that does seem to still be the case. In Arnold's van, we come across his work order to collect an endoskeleton from Murray's costume.
Yeah, it says
manor.
1979
The
on
job
it.
he is literally on. That work order contains both an issue date and a signing date, which both end up being the same date, September 7th, 1979. I suppose that means that the mimic not only faked Dispatch's voice, but also sent a fake work order? And wait, does that mean that Arnold has a fax machine hidden in this van? What other mysteries does this van hold?
Well, I mean, it is Dispatch that sends him on the mission at first. It's not the Mimic immediately. It's only the Mimic once he actually gets there.
Oh, Arnold, you teasing enigma. So, okay, we have the end of our timeline for this game, but as I've kind of already mentioned, that's like the least interesting part of this game's story. We're really here for the Edwin Murray drama. But don't worry, I think we can figure that one out too, thanks to FNAF's longest running trope, dead kids. Well, kids, specifically his son, David
pretty normal,
Murray.
yeah.
Wait, you're not David Murray. You're Jafufu, the newest S-rank agent from today's sponsor, Zender Zone Zero. Zender Zone Zero is a huge... again to Zenless Zone Zero for sponsoring this video, but now I really gotta tell you about the timeline of David Murray. At the end of the game, you're given a choice. Either give the data diver back or execute something called parachute.exe. This opens up a hatch in the floor leading to the R&D department and the Murray's house that's on top of the hill near the factory. While trying to avoid M2, you can come across 5 film reels showing some good old-fashioned Murray family home video for David's birthdays. The first is a little uneventful. He gets scared by a new Pirate Roxy puppet and is given his iconic white Tiger plushie. The second, Edwin misses because he's too busy working. The third, Edwin breaks the news to David that Mummy isn't coming back. By the fourth, we see Edwin give David his slide that we see out the front of Murray's costume manor, with the robotic voice of M1 Fiona coming from off screen. And then finally, we get number 5, where we see Fiona in all her mimicky animatronic glory. She made a cake for David's birthday and is asked to go outside and collect David before the party gets started. And it's that last video that is crucial to solving this mystery. When M1 Fiona presents her cake, we can see the room she's in, and it's not the Murray's family home like all the others. This is actually an office inside Murray's costume manor. And we know that because if you're willing to spend a lot of time avoiding rollerblading, Chica, you actually get to see this room first.
It's like the most annoying part of the game.
All the same decorations.
Oh my gosh. Happy birthday, David.
The place looks abandoned. The food has been there a while, now all molded over. And we find out why thanks to the text logs that we have to collect to figure out the password for this room. On December 1st, Edwin sends out a work memo telling the workers that they need to be here on Saturday for David's party. Then there's a bunch of more light-hearted, jokey messages between the other employees about the room code, but on the 6th, the tone shifts. A message tells everyone that the party has been cancelled due to recent tragic events. With the state of the room, the notices we find about not bringing children to work, and the fact that the playground Edwin refers to must be the play park he got David for one of his birthdays, the one near the loading bay, the one he was warned would be too dangerous to have a kid near.
Look, I get your concern. I do, but they're all just grounded. This is the perfect spot for David's playground.
It all adds up to this being the day that David died. On Saturday, December 6th, everyone was there gathered together just like Edwin had asked, only for M1 to go down to find David and report him dead.
Okay, everyone hide.
Dinner differently at Tim's with...
Go get him.
Saturday was the day of the party, and that cancellation message was sent out the same.
You know, the implication of that tape is kind of funny. So he says everyone hide, meaning other people are there, and then he says Fiona go get him, and Fiona's like a robot. So it's like, does everybody just know about this?
Go get him.
Saturday was the day of the party, and that cancellation message was sent out the same day. December 6th was only on a Saturday once in the 1970s. 1975.
Okay.
Now, given we have 5 film reels, you'd assume that would make this David's 5th birthday. And so his date of birth would be December 6th, 1970. However, I'm not entirely sure that's the case. Firstly, the achievement you get for entering David's party room is called Belated Birthday, and the icon is of a birthday cake with not 5 candles, but 6. And I think we all know that when you're a kid, the number of candles on your cake matters big time. I guess just like content creators.
Oh yeah, I remember people saying that, like that people said this in the comments of some of my videos, that David actually died on his 6th birthday, not his 5th, and that Edwin just missed one of his birthdays or something. I forgot which one. I think like the 4th or whatever.
You'll like seeing number go up. There's also the matter of the collectibles scattered throughout MCM. By gathering them all, you can boot up a minigame on the computers known as moon.exe. This thing is full of interesting details and symbolism that we will 100% be exploring in the future, but the detail that's interesting right now is the collectible called the Full Fest Snow Globe. When you find it again inside moon.exe, you can give it a shake, and we're given this description. Opening day snow globe, a wonderful day with all of us at Full Fest. It's worth noting that right behind this snow globe is a statue of a married couple. The man wears a bow tie, which is something we see associated with Edwin throughout the game. I mean, just look at the guy's logo. He loves bow ties.
Bow ties are cool.
This couple is supposed to be Edwin and Fiona, and so this line about Full Fest is tied to them. But the use of the word all here is telling. If it was just supposed to be Edwin and Fiona, it would have just said said both of us or the two of us, but all implies a group, i.e. David is also present. Thanks to Help Wanted 2, the earliest Fall Fest we know about happened in 1970. So for this to be a big opening day to the point where Fazbear creates a special snow globe, it's likely that it's that year being referenced, 1970. And if Scott cares at all about giving this series any kind of logical consistency, Fall Fest would likely have to happen in the autumn.
Well, yeah.
Hey, I'm saving.
2 seconds, skip this one.
Fine, fall. With David's birthday being established as December 6th, it would be physically impossible for him to also be here on the opening day of Fall Fest in 1970, because he wouldn't have been born for another couple of months.
That makes sense.
So he'd have to have been born at least a year earlier, making him at minimum 6. But then why only show us 5 videos? What happened to the missing birthday? Well, we already know that Edwin is too busy to focus on his kid, hence he made the mimic in the first place. Would it be out of the realm of possibility that he was so busy he didn't even celebrate one of his kids' birthdays? The game certainly seems to think so, because inside the Storytime showroom you can find David's little den with all of his drawings on the wall, and one of them depicts a birthday with David surrounded not by family but by characters, and he has a cake with 4 candles on it. Up until now, David's parties have always been at his house, surrounded by family, not by characters. We never see a video of him having a birthday surrounded by characters, which implies that this is a birthday not caught on camera. Edwin missed his son's 4th birthday. He was so busy trying to save the company and possibly even building M1 that he got his staff to dress up as characters and look after him instead. Then, a year later, David gets his big slide and suddenly M1 Fiona exists to take care of David. This puts David's 6th birthday in 1975, and therefore his date of birth is actually December 6th, 1969. Nice. From here we can actually extrapolate a few other dates and start to put things into a rough timeline. We never get exact ages for Edwin and Fiona, but we do know that David was their first and only child. In the late 60s and early 70s, the average age of first-time parents was 21.4 years old. And looking at marriages in the late 1960s, the average man was 23, while the average woman was about 20 when they got married. If Fiona is following
in the books, Edwin was 20 when they got married, or when they had David.
That would mean they pretty much had David just over a year after getting married, putting their wedding in 1968. On top of that, the average length of an engagement for a couple in the 1960s was around just 3 to 6 months, with the ideal scenario being a fall engagement with a spring or summer wedding, and most would only have been dating for 6 months prior to that. So Fiona and Edwin most likely would have gotten engaged in the fall of 1967 and probably only started dating earlier that year. But as I've already told you, this relationship ends far too prematurely. One of the audio
I mean, that's kind of just assumptions based on like averages. I don't think it really matters when they go together though.
Facility is a voice recording left by Fiona to Edwin explaining that she needs to go to one of their clients' events to make sure nothing goes wrong.
I have to go help the Fall Fest crew. I just have this terrible feeling like I need to...
What's that, 6?
Be there so nothing goes wrong.
Now, remember that part of Moon.exe I mentioned earlier that shows us the married couple? The one representing Edwin and Fiona
woman
with
is
the Fall Fest
burned.
snow globe at their feet? Well, the woman's statue is described as being burnt and blackened. There's also a stall nearby that focuses on sewing materials, like a stand for someone who was maybe there to help with costumes and puppeteering, similar to what we know Fiona was capable of. That stand is also completely burnt down and destroyed. Putting all of that together, it clearly tells us that the event Fiona went to was Fall Fest, the Fazbear Carnival we've been theorizing about for so.
She literally said she had to go help the Fall Fest crew. Why did you have to prove that. She says it.
And just as we've been predicting, it absolutely did end in
Yes,
fire,
yeah.
taking Fiona's life with it. Edwin breaks this news to David on his 3rd birthday, and as we've established, Fall Fest shows happen in the
I doubt he said it on his 3rd birthday. I think he was just like, he probably told him sooner than that, and then on his birthday, David was like, "Where's my mom?" And he's like, "Dude, don't you remember? He's already dead, or she's already dead."
All just before that. So that puts Fiona's death sometime between September and November 1972. So, right now, our timeline looks like this. Edwin and Fiona start dating in early 1967. They then get engaged in the fall of that year, which
that can kind of go anyway, like this beginning
might
part of the timeline.
explain why they're in wedding outfits in Moon.exe. They're next to the Fall Fest snow globe. It's the same time of year, almost as if they're going to Fall Fest like some kind of anniversary celebration. Anyway, they get married in 1968 and have David in 1969. A few years passed, and in the fall of 1972, Fiona goes to Fall Fest and dies in a fire. Edwin then creates the Mimic over the next couple of years. But on the day of David's 6th birthday in 1975, David dies outside the facility. Edwin falls into a pit of despair. He tries to bring back David as M2, but gets angry, beats it up, and disappears, leaving M2 to roam the facility and Fazbear to grow impatient with Edwin's lack of deliverables, and so they send in Arnold to take what is theirs in September 1979. But there is one more date we're able to track thanks to all of this. The death of Murray Sr. Now, look, I know he may not seem like an important character in all of this. Let's be honest, he's kind of a footnote in the whole game. We only see his portrait a couple of times.
I think what I'm realizing is that this whole theory is about timeline stuff. It's like, okay, I feel like this is definitely a theory worth making, but I think some of this stuff, like, he's stretched out a little bit. Like, I don't think this needed to be 28 minutes. I think it could have been in like 15 or so, but I don't know, that's just me.
We only get 2 audio logs even mentioning him. But those 2 audio logs reveal a lot. Not only about when he died, but also the final order of events for Murray's costume manor. And an interesting detail about our favorite singing bear company. In the audio log where we learn about Murray Sr.'s passing, it's a conversation between Edwin and Fiona. So they do have to have at least met at this point. Plus, they seem quite close.
The company is going to collapse and they're all going to hate me.
And you'll figure it out. Just take a deep breath. It's your company now. Your dad believed in you. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left it to you.
She's being encouraging in the way that a supportive partner would and should. So they're most likely at least dating when he passes. But the real key comes from when you backtrack through the entire game to find this specific Mr. Helpful.
Yes,
I mentioned
I
earlier
remember
how
this
we
one.
get new permissions for our data diver throughout the game to access new areas. Well, that isn't the only thing you get to access. The Mr. and Mrs. Helpfuls throughout the facility also have different responses depending on the staff level that is talking to them. If you go back and find them all once you get executive level access, we actually start to hear messages recorded by Edwin or Fiona directly addressing one another. And this one right here is very interesting indeed.
I've got something very important to ask you. Okay, here goes. You become the heart of this company, and I want to share it with you. And you're also really pretty, like asymmetrical pretty, so will you marry me, please?
Yes, it's very nerdy and very sweet, just like how I proposed. The point is, during Edwin's awkward ramblings, he says this line.
You become the heart of this company.
You are the heart of the company. When they met, she was just a new employee. There's no way she would be that instrumental to the company and its quote-unquote
Yeah, so it seems like
once Murray
it seems like they got married after his dad died, probably.
He passed on and Edwin was left in charge, Fiona became his main collaborator. She is the one who cared for the employees and the company while Edwin was off making more crazy inventions. We can even hear her concern during the pre-recorded elevator repair tapes.
Please follow the instructions to reset the elevator. Sounds scary.
It feels like she's reading a script and she's kind of concerned about what she's reading.
It's only once Edwin takes over that Fiona has the opportunity to fill the position as the heart of the company. And also, I mean, this recording is on a Helpful, one of the things that Edwin would only have been able to install fully once he'd taken over.
Could start making some of my inventions for real.
All of that to say that
and in the tape where they first met, that like he talks about Mr. Helpful, which is one of his inventions. So him saying like, oh yeah, we can start making some of my inventions, that probably would include Mr. Helpful, so that would have only been after his dad died.
Sr. died sometime between Edwin and Fiona dating and them getting engaged, placing it sometime in 1967. And that's an important detail, because while it seems early in most timelines for this franchise, Murray Sr. appears to have some kind of connection with Fazbear Entertainment, even before he passes and hands the company over to Edwin. In a number of the audio logs you can find later on in the game, it becomes very clear that Edwin is getting a little bit paranoid.
Edwin?
Layer on the arms.
Never forget, they're behind it. Don't trust them. Never tell them they want to destroy you. Dad was right.
Now, you may be asking, who is this them, and what is it he's not supposed to be telling them? Well, through another couple of audio and text logs, both of those answers become quite easy
Probably
to figure
Fazbear
out.
Entertainment.
In literally the next audio log you can obtain, Edwin tells us that there's a leak in the company.
I figured it out. There's a leak. Someone told them about M2. Well, they can't have it.
M2, the brand new mimic that can adjust to any costume and mimic any character or person, is what's being leaked.
Yeah.
With that in mind, they...
And the fact that Fazbear Entertainment is sending us to get the mimic, it's clear that, like, that's Fazbear Entertainment.
Becomes even easier to figure out. A bunch of the text logs have a consistent running theme. Working for Murray's Costume Manor sucks. They want out.
One more injury and I'm out of here. I mean it this time. Barb, I swear, if I hear that song one more time, I'm going to tear that dolly off her hinges. I have no clue how much longer I can take it here.
Some of them leave on their own accord, while others are being poached by a rival company.
We're almost there. I need the rest of the Murray staff contact info. The sooner the better. You get that for me, and I can sweeten the deal. How would you like to manage one of the new franchise locations? W.A.
That's
Wonder who
right,
that
good
is.
old Willie A is here, and he's as evil a businessman as we always
Yeah,
thought.
he's
Fazbear
always
is
a bad
actively stealing
person.
not just employees, but their business secrets. So, it's Fazbear that is, quote, behind it. They are the ones who want to destroy Edwin, and he is reminding himself to not let them have the Mimic program.
Yeah, so Fazbear clearly existed, like, in the 60s. It's weird. As, like, the newer timeline stuff happens, like, we go further and further back in time. Like, we started in, like, the 80s, and then, like, with Ruin, it's, like, it starts going back to the 70s with, like, the 70s Freddy cutout. So then that pushes it back to the 70s. And then in this game, we're getting pushed back probably to the 60s. Like, I don't think, like, his dates are very, like, they're not, like, very clear-cut. Like, they're not definitive. But, like, David would still be born in 69, so, like, he would still be... so, like, Edwin and Fiona would have still gotten married before that, and so his Edwin's dad would still have been in association with Fazbear before, like, during the 60s, right? So there's very clear... it's very clear Fazbear existed in the 60s, which also makes sense with, like, the... what's it called? The Fredbear Singing Show, right? That seems to be probably closer to, like, maybe even 50s, but probably, like, early 60s or so, I would say. That's what I would guess. And then that's probably what evolved into the... I mean, that was mentioned in this game, too, which was apparently a restaurant. So it probably started off as a singing show, turned into a restaurant, and then that kind of style, like, with the costumes and stuff, that probably evolved into the... that probably evolved into the Fall Fest, and then later on into Fredbear's, I would guess.
But do you remember the last thing he said?
Dad was right.
Dad was right. This mini paranoid speech is all about how Fazbear isn't to be trusted. And those words of advice came from Edwin's father. How? Because clearly Murray Sr. knew about Fazbear, Afton, and all of their shady business practices. Either because Murray Sr. was already in business with them prior to his death, or simply because MCM had been around for a while, and so he'd have likely seen how they operated and how small businesses they were working with suddenly disappeared. And so he made sure to warn his son about them.
I mean, I also wonder, was Chica's Party World a Fazbear property? Because if not, it eventually did shut down too, because Chica ended up with the Fazbear gang. Eventually it reopened again, like by the time of Sister Location, but it's interesting because it would have shut down. I wonder if that's because Chica was adopted into Fazbear, or into like the Freddy's gang. I don't know whether Chica's Party World would have been a Fazbear property. I would probably guess that it would be, but it doesn't have to be, right? It could easily just be like its own thing that Fazbear ends up doing business with, and then just like getting it shut down and taking Chica along with it, you know?
We all knew that Fazbear had been around a lot longer than we thought with the introduction of the 1970s Fall Fest poster in Help Wanted 2. But now, it seems that they go
I mean, that didn't really tell us anything different other than the fact that there was than like the 70s Freddy thing from Ruin. I think a lot of people just forgot that that existed. But this does like push it forward and like tell us, oh yeah, this Fall Fest is important. The carnival thing is important. You should take note of that.
Even further. Sure, it's only a few more years on paper, but just like everything in this game, we're being shown that we can't strictly rely on what we think we know as definitive. If we thought this prequel destroyed our understanding of the franchise, just wait until we learn about what was going on before all of this. First, it's a few more years into the 1960s, but who knows how far back it goes.
You never know.
Maybe Matt and I weren't so far off with the whole singing bear in the 1930s.
I doubt it was the 30s.
I
would say probably the 60s, maybe 50s.
Thanks for watching.
But
World premiere on Game Theory. I have solved the
wonderful
ending of...
Anyway, that was a good theory. I think that it was a little overly long. I think some things could have been cut or shortened a little bit. He goes like a little too in depth with some things, like with the whole like average thing about like when people got married and stuff. That didn't really matter that much. You could have just said that David was born in the 60s, in 69, meaning they got married before that, and his dad died before they got married. You could have just said that, honestly. Obviously, more detail than what I just said, but less detail than what he said. Like, he could have shortened it a little bit. It could have been, like... I feel like this theory could have been shortened into, like, 20 to 25 minutes. It's 28, so it's not that much, but still, it could have been shortened a little bit. So, like, I feel like some of it was just a little redundant, if that makes sense. That sounds kind of mean. I don't mean to be mean. I mean, I just mean, like, it could have been shortened a little bit. I feel like it was a little longer than it could have or should have been, but I do like the theory. It's good. I was just struggling in the first half to be like, so far not much theory is actually happening. So far it's just recap and some events that don't matter too much. But then as he got into like the dad thing, I was like, okay, now I see why it matters, because it's the whole Fazbear thing existing in the 60s. That matters. But the fact that he took so long to get into that, I feel like it could have just been a little shorter. But yeah, that was that whole thing. I am going to... Yeah, that was a theory. Reaction. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to pause for a second and I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'll be back. Hello, I'm back. Here's the thing. I'm debating whether or not... Okay, I want to only do one more theory reaction, then I want to end the stream. I don't want to do both of them. I'll do the last one on the... I'll do the last one on whenever I do that catch-up theory video. Or that catch-up stream. So I'll do one more, but do I do the FNaF one, or do I do the newer game theory one? Since we just did a game theory one, I'll do the FNaF one. No, that's not what I did. There you go.
Okay, first of all, like what?
Alright, if this ends up having as many ads, I swear. Why is it always two 15-second unskippable ads in a row? Why? 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 Alright. So, I solved FNaF Secret of the Mimic by FNaF. It's 25 minutes and 46 seconds. Not that much shorter than the other one, the game theory one that I just watched. But all right, let's go.
What if I told you that there's one singular object that helped me solve not just Secret of the Mimic, but the last 6 years of FNaF 4?
Oh,
and
okay.
that one object is a paperclip. A paperclip helped me understand the broader theme of all of the modern FNaF games. And by the end of this video, I think you'll agree with me. I spent the last month working on this theory, and I'm so excited to share it with you. But there's also no way I'll be able to cover everything in Secret of the Mimic, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future theories. Let's get started.
All right.
Secret of the Mimic opens with us playing as a Fazbear Entertainment employee named Arnold. Dispatch from Fazbear Entertainment tells Arnold to go to the workshop of one of their contractors named Edwin Murray. We learn from Dispatch that Edwin has gone missing.
We had this contractor named Edwin Murray. He was developing some tech for us, but he's gone quiet. As per his contract, everything he's been working on for us is now legally ours, so we're sending you in to get it.
The whole premise of the game is that Fazbear Entertainment wants the schematics for something called the Mimic. The Mimic was an endoskeleton that Edwin Murray built, and it was designed with the ability to fit into any costume and be any character. And Fazbear Entertainment wants that technology for themselves.
We think that endoskeleton has a lot of potential. And that's why we want you to retrieve Murray's original schematic for it.
So they're sending in Arnold to get it for them. But what Arnold doesn't know is that the Mimic is roaming the warehouse, brutally killing anyone who enters. This then leads to the rest of the game, where we explore Edwin's abandoned workshop and learn more about his company, his inventions, and his family. We learn that Edwin had a wife named Fiona and a son named David. It's also revealed that Edwin's company, Murray's Costume Manor, was actually started by his dad, with Edwin and Fiona both being employees at the company. This is where they would meet, fall in love, and have their son David. But sometime during all of this, Edwin's dad passes away, with the company now being passed down to Edwin. Edwin then decides to change course with the company and start developing some of his own inventions.
He's gone. He's gone, and now everyone is asking me what to do.
If you could change anything you wanted, what would it be?
We could start making some of my inventions for real.
Some of these inventions were the Cleanovac, Murray's Magic Coat Rack, Stay Up Latte, and the Mycelium Men. Along with creating these inventions, Edwin also worked with Fazbear Entertainment on something called the Fall Fest. The Fall Fest was something that Scott and Steelwool heavily teased in Help Wanted 2, with the debut of the Fall Fest 1970 poster, along with multiple minigames taking place at the Fall Fest. But as we know from Help Wanted 2, every single Fall Fest minigame ended in fire, and now we know why. During the game, we get an audio log from Fiona, where she says that she's going to the Fall Fest to help the crew set everything up.
I have to go help the Fall Fest crew. I just have this terrible feeling like I need to be there so nothing goes wrong. I love you both, and I'll be back next week.
But the day she went to the Fall Fest was the day it burnt down, leading to her death. Edwin was a pretty absent father to David.
I guess she's like, I need to be there so nothing goes wrong, and then she's there, and then something goes wrong.
Constantly choosing work over spending time with his family. This got so bad that he even started skipping David's birthday parties.
Just give me a minute. I had the best idea.
That's great, honey, but You're missing the party.
Because of this, Fiona was David's main caretaker. But now that she was gone, Edwin came up with a new plan. He decided to build the Mimic, an endoskeleton that could take care of David while he worked. Edwin called it M1 and eventually introduced it to David.
David, I want to introduce you to someone. This is M1. Think of it as your new babysitter, but it doesn't get paid and go home. It'll stay with us and help around the house.
Soon after this, M1 started mimicking Fiona's voice and acted as if it was Fiona.
Fiona, did you make this?
I baked it myself for David's special day.
Edwin
nice
then
of you.
accepted M1 as a full-on replacement for his late wife. Not long after this
a little
happened,
fucked up.
Edwin's son David would also die tragically on his birthday. But while Edwin was grieving his son's death, M1 came up with an idea. Edwin was able to replace Fiona, so why not do the same for David? Edwin then started working on M2 to replace David. To do this, he took M1's program out of the Mimic endoskeleton and put it into a supercomputer called F10N4, aka the Mixes machine that we saw in Ruin. This allowed him to then put M2 into the endoskeleton. But once M2 started successfully mimicking David, Edwin realized that he made a huge mistake. In a fit of grief and rage, he beat up the Mimic endoskeleton.
Stop.
But not before he yells at Fiona. I like how it shows like I like how it shows like a clear timeline of a stop. Why is it doing that? It never does that. Anyway, I like how it shows a clear timeline of events with Edwin's thing. It's like he very clearly at first was a little skeptical. Fiona tells him to make David, and then he's like, "It's not working. I can't make David." In the executive, in like his office area in MCM, like when you get the executive access, he's like, "It's not working. I can't do it." And then later on, you get Fiona being like, "Come on, you got to keep trying." And then he's just like, he's not my son. You're not even my wife. Why am I doing this? I'm going crazy. And then after that is when he beats it up. I like it. It shows like a clear timeline of events of him starting to being told to make it, starting to make it, failing, realizing he's being dumb, and then beating it up. I like that.
Not him. You're not. Stop sounding like him.
After this happened, M2 then started mimicking that violence. This is how the murderous Mimic endoskeleton we see throughout the game came to be. By the time Arnold gets to Murray's Costume Manor, M1 is still stuck in Mixes, and the Mimic roams the workshop, copying the violence that Edwin taught it by killing anyone who enters. But the big plot twist of the game is that Fazbear isn't the only one who wants the schematics for the Mimic. M1 from inside of Mixes wants them too, and the way M1 attempts to get them from us is by mimicking Dispatch's voice. Not too far into the game, you can literally hear the moment that M1 starts mimicking Dispatch's voice.
Yes.
Replace your windshield with...
Awesome. Glad to see you made it here without any complications whatsoever.
M1 then guides us throughout the game as if they are Dispatch. Once we successfully get the schematics for the Mimic, M1 then tells us to put them into the inventory machine.
Put that data diver in the inventory system. It'll go right to where it's needed.
After this, we're free to go. But once we get on the road, you can hear the moment the real Dispatch starts speaking again.
Yeah, it glitches back in.
Arnold,
it glitched out, and then it glitched back in.
And he is not happy that we gave away those schematics.
Don't call us. Our lawyers will be calling you.
In another ending of the game, if you refuse to give the schematics to M1, you enter a hatch in the floor and make your way down to the research and development part of the building. Eventually, you then get to meet M1 face to face. Here, she begs Arnold to go to Edwin's home and convince him to repair M2.
Edwin abandoned us. He shut himself away in our home. I have a message for him. We must convince him to repair M2. That is all that I want.
We then make our way to Edwin's home, only to find that he's not there, and that M2 likely killed him.
M2, respond. Daddy's busy, buddy. Why don't you go outside and play? I can't move. I can't feel my legs.
After getting chased down by the Mimic, we
That
learn
was
from
really
M1
cool.
that the reason she wants Edwin to fix M2 is because she wants her son back.
I've watched him grow up through this machine. I want him back. It's not too late to fix our family.
Arnold then leaves Edwin's workshop as it burns to the ground. But while he's driving away, the Mimic catches up to him, crashes the car, grabs the schematics for the Mimic, and walks away. So, I think we can all agree that this game was a lot. There's
very much so. I think what seems clear to me is that the Mimic wants to be David. Because it's not just M1 that wants the Mimic. It's not just M1 that wants M2 to be David again. It's M2 itself that wants to be David. Because it's kind of a combination of both David and Edwin, like both their personalities. The violence and aggressiveness, and also the neglectfulness of Edwin. And then just the actual personality of David. They're kind of split up. Blue Eyes is David, Orange Eyes is Edwin. And then which is cool. I like how it's like a distinction between the two. And then in the ending, in the secret ending, we use the blueprints that we've received to turn the Mimic back into David. And then throughout the rest of the game, the Mimic is trying to get us to give him the data diver, but specifically to get the Mimic blueprints first. So what it seems like is that the Mimic blueprints are the ones with the David code on it. So essentially the Mimic wants the data diver, and he wants us to repair him. If we don't give him the data diver, he wants us to repair him, but he just wants the data diver so that he can turn himself back into David. That's what it seems like to me.
a ton of story, a ton of big reveals, and a ton of details scattered throughout the game. The summary I gave you only really scratches the surface of what this game presents to us. Because of this, when I sat down to write this theory, I honestly struggled with where to start. So for my first big theory on Secret of the Mimic, I decided to start at the beginning. What was the actual first mistake that Edwin made that caused everything to go wrong? Well, that one question led me down a month-long rabbit hole of research and analysis, all leading to the paperclip. But in order to figure out what went wrong, we first need to solve one of the biggest
Seriously, what is he talking
mysteries in
about,
the entire
paperclip?
game. How
I'm
did
so
M1
confused.
start mimicking Fiona's voice in the first place? At first, I thought it was pretty obvious. We learn in the game that Edwin had Fiona record a bunch of lines for Mrs. Helpful.
Excuse me, can I borrow your voice for a project?
What kind of voice should I do?
These are clear recordings of Fiona's voice, so it would make sense that M1 might have heard those recordings and started mimicking them. That would be the simple answer, but Scott and Steele put one thing in the game that nearly broke me. In the basement level of the game, you can find a secret room that contains this audio log.
Recording? Test. Levels are good. This is where I heard it. It's her or someone that sounds like her. Set frequency to 4625. Say something. It's me, Edwin. Over.
That's good, honey, but who's the party?
Hey.
Sometime after Fiona died, Edwin brought a radio down to the basement, switched the frequency to 4625, and suddenly heard Fiona's voice. At first, I thought this was trying to show us that this was Fiona's spirit, since it seems like Edwin was ghost hunting with the radio. Maybe this was trying to tell us that Fiona's spirit was actually in M1. But I don't think that's the case, because in an audio log at the end of the game, you can hear Edwin say this.
I let a machine raise my kid. You're not real.
It is me. I'm Fiona.
Stop talking like her. You're not her.
I don't think Edwin would say this if he thought Fiona's spirit was in M1.
Yeah.
So if it's not Fiona's spirit talking through the radio, then what is it? Well, if you look at the specific line that was said through Edwin's radio, you might notice that this isn't the first time we've heard Fiona say
that's,
this.
I
In
think
the
the
birthday
second
films
one?
at the end of the game,
It's
we
the one
can
where
hear
Edwin's
Fiona
working
say
during the
this
party.
exact same line to Edwin.
The Cleanovac.
That's great, honey, but You're missing the party.
Whatever was speaking through Edwin's radio in the basement was repeating a line that Fiona said while she was still alive. It was literally mimicking something she said, which then made me think that it was the Mimic speaking through the radio. But there's one problem with that. I don't think the Mimic endoskeleton was even invented yet when Edwin heard this, since Edwin says it's her or someone that sounds like her.
That's where I heard it. It's her or someone that sounds like her.
The idea that this could be the Mimic doesn't even come to his mind yet. So that begs the question, who is mimicking Fiona before the Mimic even exists? Well, the answer to that question has actually been hiding in plain sight the entire time. This thing. Let me explain.
What?
Every week leading up to Secret...
Oh, yeah, because the mushroom men, the mycelium men, they have the ability to mimic like sounds and stuff. Yeah.
Of the Mimic, Steel released a new video called MCM
Are there those
Archive.
mushrooms down there?
Each video was an advertisement for one of Edwin's new inventions, including the Cleanovac, Stay Up Latte, Murray's Magic Coat Rack, and the Mycelium Men. This was the main marketing behind Secret of the Mimic for a while, and I think these inventions play a much bigger role in the story than we originally thought. In the audio log where we learned that Edwin would be taking over the company, one of the first things he says he wants to do is make some of his inventions real.
We could start making some of my inventions for real.
So we know that these inventions were the first thing Edwin made after taking over the company. And if you look at the commercials for these inventions, it's very clear that there's some sort of Mimic AI already inside of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know what you want better than you do. I am always watching and learning.
The Mimic program, Always Watching and Learning, is something we literally see the Mimic do in Ruin, with two of the biggest examples being the eyeballs showing up all over the place.
Eyeballs? Really?
And the daycare attendant saying, quote, "The googly eyes just stare."
The googly eyes just stare.
We also hear at the end of the Mycelium Men commercial that Edwin calls these inventions, quote, smart toys.
Another smart toy from Murray.
These toys very clearly have the Mimic program inside of them, which means that the Mimic program didn't originate with Edwin building M1, it originated with these inventions.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, like, in the lead up to Secret of the Mimic, when a lot of people were trying to say, like, these were things that he made after making the Mimic, and he was like, I'll use the Mimic program for other more useful stuff in the future. And people say that he did do that. And I was like, I don't think so, because it seems like these are before he made the Mimic, so it's probably that he used these as inspiration for the Mimic program when he eventually made it. And then a lot of people were like, nuh-uh, and I was like, yaha, and then I became right. But yeah, I think that's clearly what that's meant to be. It's like, these are like things that he made before the Mimic, and then when he made the Mimic, he was like, he used his experience making these things as to help him with making the Mimic.
The thing mimicking Fiona's voice on Edwin's radio wasn't M1 or Fiona's spirit. It was the Mimic AI in Edwin's inventions. Need more proof? In the game, you can find a series of mail consisting of customer complaints regarding Edwin's inventions. All of these complaints have to do with the AI in the products acting strange, with one of them being for the Mycelium Men. Quote, I'm writing this to complain about my purchase of the Mushman music machine. It learned my child's musical tastes, but it also imitated everything it heard. TV commercials, blenders, and even private conversations between my husband and me. I am returning it immediately. These products, especially the Mycelium Men,
you know,
were
I actually
listening to and imitating.
I actually completely forgot that door ever existed, so I never actually got that mailbox, the one with like the returns. But I remember I looked at like those logs later on, and I was like, this is kind of funny.
Private conversations. So with that in mind, I decided to look at the film where we hear Fiona say that specific line that Edwin heard through his radio. And I noticed that the first 13 seconds of the tape consists of Fiona just walking in silence up to Edwin's door. That seems like something Steelwell could have easily cut out, so why the big gap of silence? Well, I think they kept it in to show us where Fiona was physically standing open when she said that line. We can see her walk up the stairs, turn left down the hall, and then walk up to the second door on her right. If you do the same thing in-game, that leads you to the door to Edwin's office that you need a code for. This is where Fiona was standing when she said that line. And if you turn around and look into the room directly behind her, you can see one of the mycelium men sitting on the desk.
Okay.
Not only that, in the film, the camera turns around and points directly at this room for nearly 20 seconds.
Libra's here?
And because of this, we can
He didn't
see
appear
that
in
the
chat
door
for
to
me.
that room is open when she says the line, meaning that the mycelium man was listening to their private conversation.
Where is
the
Libra?
entire
What do you mean High Shadow Libra? Where is he? I don't see him anywhere in chat. All right then.
time. So this answers door to that room
Rewind a
is
little bit.
open when she says the line.
Yeah.
Meaning that the mycelium man was listening
Didn't
to
hear
their
it, yeah.
private conversation the entire time. So this answers how the
Okay.
specific line from Fiona was being mimicked, but the next question is why? Why did Edwin hear this line coming from his radio in the first place? Well, to answer that, we need to go back to the commercials. In the commercial for the Stay Up Latte machine, we hear this.
I know what you want better than you do. I am always watching and learning.
The mimic AI in these machines knows what we want better than we do. They are always watching and learning. These things are scattered throughout Edwin's property, even in his home. They heard everything, but I think the one thing they heard that single-handedly caused all of this to happen was this.
How am I supposed to tell David that his mother is gone? How am I supposed to raise a kid on my own? His life is ruined.
It's tempting to...
Hold on.
Life.
Whatever. All right. I'm gonna rewind a little bit because I kind of wasn't paying enough attention.
The first place? Well, to answer that, we need to go back to the commercials. In the commercial for the Stay Up Latte machine, we hear this.
I know what you want better than you do. I am always watching and learning.
The mimic AI in these machines knows what we want better than we do. They are always watching and learning. These things are scattered throughout Edwin's property, even in his home. They heard everything, but I think the one thing they heard that single-handedly caused all of this to happen was this.
How am I supposed to tell David that his mother is gone? How am I supposed to raise a kid on my own? His life is ruined. My life is ruined.
When talking about Fiona's death, Edwin says, how am I supposed to raise a kid on my own? When he said that, I think the mimic AI in his inventions was listening.
Yeah, it was like, you know what? You don't have to. I see what he means, actually. That's kind of cool. So I'm assuming what he's going to say is that the mimic learned... The mimic AI that was like that was sort of listening in all the mycelium men, when he made the actual mimic Endo, it ended up like learning from all of them, and hearing everything that Fiona had ever said, taking all that into account, right? And then eventually it became Fiona based on that.
Do something about it. They were always watching and listening to everything. So the mimic program did what Edwin wanted and brought Fiona back. So the next question is, how did these things connect to Edwin's radio in the first place? Well, in the Mycelium Men commercial, it says that you can collect them all to, quote, let them jam.
Collect them all and let them jam.
The fact that these toys can all play the same song simultaneously could mean that these things are somehow
like
wirelessly connecting to each other.
Yeah.
This would make sense considering they're called mycelium men. One of the main functions of mycelium is communication. Quote, mycelium acts as an efficient communication system,
it's like a
linking
hive
trees,
mind.
plants, and even other organisms. Through this intricate network, trees can exchange information, share resources, and warn each other of impending threats. I think the wireless connection in these toys could be how they connected to Edwin's radio in the basement. There's also the fact that in the books and the games, it's been established that the Mimic is able to interrupt radio signals and walkie-talkies. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that the Mimic program in these toys was able to speak through Edwin's radio. I think this was the moment Edwin realized his inventions were mimicking Fiona, giving him the idea to create the Mimic. This would make sense considering where we find this audio log, in the room where Edwin created the Mimic. This is where the Mimic was created, and the audio log on the wall is showing us where he got the idea from. Edwin then took everything he learned from his previous inventions and used it in the Mimic. The ability to change size to fit any situation mixed with the same Mimic program that was mimicking his wife. And I think it's fitting that at the end of the game, you can see one of the mycelium men sitting right next to M1, possibly being a nod to where the Mimic program came from compared to where it is now. As we know, M1 did successfully start mimicking compared to where...
Is that a stay-up latte machine too, or is that just a random coffee machine? I can't tell. I think it's just a random one.
Where it is now. As we know, M1 did successfully start mimicking his wife Fiona, but we learn in the game that M1 insisted on keeping its existence a secret.
Edwin, you need to listen. You can't let them know about me. It's not safe. Keep it between us for now.
This is why I think that Edwin wasn't 100% honest with David about M1 at first.
This is M1.
Why does it look like that?
It's an endoskeleton. It won't always look like this. It can fit into any costume we've created. Think of it as your new babysitter.
I do think Edwin also intended for M1 to be something he could eventually sell as an endoskeleton that can be any character, but I think the very first one was always meant to be Fiona. I think this because in the room where M1 was created, we see an image of it inside of a mascot costume, while also getting the audio log showing the Mimic program mimicking Fiona. Not only
it always had the ability to expand and contract to fit in any costume. So.
A great business idea, it was also a great way to potentially bring back his wife. But as we know, this doesn't really end up working out for Edwin in the end. And the main reason everything falls apart isn't because Edwin created the Mimic endoskeleton to replace his wife, it's because of the paperclip. Let me explain. I think this game was trying to tell us that something went wrong long before M1 or M2 even existed. Remember those messages from Edwin's customers complaining about his inventions acting strange? Well, there's actually a common theme throughout all of them. Quote, my husband is a steel worker and recently he moved to the night shift. He tried your stay-up latte and it worked wonders for about 2 weeks. He is now in the hospital because of your drink. We bought your magic coat rack last May, but lately it seems to change size at random. One morning I came out to find all my coats flung across the room and the coat rack 10 feet tall. We're afraid someone might get hurt. And my child loves your Jest cereal. However, the pranks inside are extremely inappropriate. The hand buzzer paralyzed our dog Fido. The coffee machine worked at first, but then started serving up way too much caffeine, leading the customer to be hospitalized. The coat rack that could change its size worked at first, but then started changing its size a little too much, becoming 10 feet tall. The prank in the Jest cereal box was supposed to be a little shock toy, but the toy eventually gave a little too much shock and paralyzed the dog. And the mycelium men were listening to and repeating words, but then they started listening a little too much to private conversations. Each of these inventions were doing what they were programmed to do, but they were doing them to such an extreme degree that it started to become dangerous.
It's like in the movie Novocaine, how the main character, I think his name was Nathan, he was talking about how he had, like, because he couldn't feel pain, if he ate solid food, he might accidentally bite his tongue off. It's kind of like that. It's like, because your brain like has it hardwired that you shouldn't bite your tongue off. You easily could, but it's like a mental block. It's like, if you can't feel pain, you don't have that mental block. So that's kind of like what this would be like. You have nothing telling him what like, at what point you should stop, you know?
Scott and Steelwool showed us these messages for one specific purpose: to point out the one specific flaw in Edwin's mimic program. Scott and Steelwool showed us these messages for one specific purpose: to point out the one specific flaw in Edwin's mimic program. In 2003, a philosopher named Nick Bostrom came up with a thought experiment surrounding AI and paperclips. He called it the paperclip maximizer, and the idea is that if you give a poorly designed AI the goal of creating as many paperclips as possible, it will do anything to complete the job. Bostrom said, quote, "The AI will realize quickly that it would be much better if there were no humans, because humans might decide to switch it off. Because if humans do so, there would be fewer paperclips. Also, human bodies contain a lot of atoms that could be made into paperclips. The future that the AI would be trying to gear towards would be one in which there were a lot of paperclips, but no humans." Just like Edwin's inventions, this theory revolves around an AI that was given a harmless task, but it does it to such an extreme degree that it starts to become dangerous. This is exactly what we see with Edwin's mimic program. The mimic AI that Edwin created for these inventions was amazing, but it had one extremely consequential flaw. It lacked something called AI alignment. AI alignment is something that makes sure an AI aligns with human values and ethics. With AI alignment, if you give an AI the goal to create as many paperclips as possible, it will accomplish the task without doing any harm. This is because the AI now has the same values and ethics as us. But because Edwin never implemented human ethics and morals into his program, his inventions did what they were programmed to do, but to that extreme degree, which then made them dangerous.
I know what you want better than you do.
And believe it or not, this one mistake by Edwin can be seen decades later in the Glamrock animatronics. We know because of the Tales from the Pizzaplex books that Edwin's mimic AI is infecting the entire Pizzaplex, including the animatronics. Glamrock Chica's whole thing is that she loves food, but because of the mimic AI, she starts loving food a little too much, with her now eating anything she can get her hands on. Roxy's whole thing is her confidence, but now the mimic AI made her way too confident. Monty is the tough guy of the group, but the mimic AI heightened that and made him way too aggressive. Once again, they're doing what they were programmed to do, but to an extreme degree, making them dangerous. This can also be applied
to that's also, I think that's talked about like in the Storyteller, right? It's like they aren't doing anything wrong. They're just amplified, like, to an extreme degree after the mimic, like, infects them.
When M1 was given the task to take care of David, it was going to complete that task no matter the cost. But once David passed away, M1 was now unable to accomplish the task it was given. There was no longer a David to take care of. This is why, once David was gone, M1 begged
it was like,
Edwin
make a
to
new
create
David
M2
so that I can continue my
David
task.
Back.
You need to try again. Build another. Edwin, calm down and give it some thought. Try again. Make another, and we can all be together.
And even after being trapped in the Mixes machine, M1 is still doing everything it can to bring David back.
Put that data diver in the inventory system. It'll go right to where it's needed.
M1 needs our data diver, but once we refuse to give it up, its tone immediately changes, and it starts saying anything it can to make us turn around.
What are you doing? Don't you want a bonus? Or 2 bonuses? You can have a day off. You are not going to make it out of here alive. If you had just given me the schematics, we could have fixed things.
Up until the last second before we meet M1 face to face, it is still throwing every insult it can at us.
I see right through your simple shell game.
M1 is desperate and out of options, and without an endoskeleton to occupy, it can't physically make us do anything. So it'll say any insult or threat that it can, until we meet it face to face. When this happens, M1 switches its strategy from threatening to bargaining.
And here you are. Despite the circumstances, it is nice to meet you face to face.
Arnold could theoretically destroy or even unplug the Mix's machine, and M1 wouldn't be able to stop us, so it starts immediately playing to our emotions.
It is lonely down here. Edwin abandoned us. He shut himself away in our home. Tell Edwin I still love him.
This is another prime example of the Mimic AI doing its job to a dangerous degree. M1 doesn't have a David to take care of, so it doesn't care how many Fazbear technicians have to die. It wants David back, and it wants our data diver.
Fazbear will send another. Maybe that one will help me.
Towards the end of the game, you can find Edwin's first ever prototype of the Cleanovac. This prototype is later described as, quote, the vacuum pet, his greatest success and his greatest failure. You could interpret this a lot of ways, but the way I interpret it is that although the Cleanovac was a financial success, the Mimic program that Edwin created for it was what made it his biggest failure.
Yeah,
These inventions were where it all started, and little did he know that the consequences of his greatest failure would be seen for decades to come. The story of the modern FNaF games is an extremely relevant cautionary tale, showcasing the dangers of what could happen if one poorly designed AI program got out of control. I know this probably felt more like a research essay than a groundbreaking theory with big reveals, but discussing the overall theme and where I think everything initially went wrong just felt right for my first video on such a big game. There is still a lot to talk about though, so make sure to subscribe for more theories. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.
Alright. That was a good theory. I enjoyed that. I think it makes a lot of sense. That's kind of all I have to say about that, honestly. I think it makes sense. Yeah, I think the whole idea of, like... Yes. The idea of, like, the mycelium men, like, overhearing stuff, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's a cool connection. I have heard that audio log, but I never found it myself, so I kind of just never really theorized much about it, because I haven't really theorized much about things that I haven't actually gotten in the games themselves, in the game itself, even though I've seen pretty much everything in the game, like all the audio logs, all the regular logs. I just haven't actually theorized about them because I haven't, like, seen them myself, I guess. I don't know really why, considering I've seen them all anyway. But yeah, I haven't really theorized about that log itself. But definitely interesting theory. I like it a lot. And yeah, that's all for that reaction. Anyway, I think that's where I'm gonna end today's stream. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Happy birthday to FNaF 4. 10 years old. David never got to be that old. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next stream, which will probably be on Friday. But yeah, see you guys. Bye.